Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to part 14 of What If I Was Reincarnated in the World of Pokemon and Became the Greatest Pokemon Tactician. Let the tale begin. Chapter 351, One Day Later. Alex and his Pokemon observed the oversized TV in the hotel room as the tournament final began. After Alex got his prize yesterday, he immediately went back to the hotel, where he had been for several days, and started training with his Pokemon. Today, the last 4 participants will decide a champion among themselves. The last 4 participants were Participant 1, Koga. Participant 2, Lieutenant Surge. Participant 3, Sabrina. Participant 4, Senta. The fact that all 4 participants had the lowest participant number possible showed Alex again how difficult it is to win this tournament with a high number. There was only one close fight among the top 8 participants' matches, and that was the match between participants 4 and 5. Participant 5, Christina. Pokemon: Snorlax LV54, Jengar LV54, Steelix LV55, Slowbro LV55, Ninetales LV55, Venusaur LV55. Versus Participant 4, Senta. Pokemon: Tyrantrum LV52, Flygon LV53, Haxorus LV53, Kingdra LV55, Dragonite LV59, Dragonite LV60. Senta used his 3 weakest Pokemon at the beginning and only managed to defeat one of Christina's Pokemon, also damaged another of Christina's Pokemon. It turned into a 3 versus 5 fight. The participant Senta still wins thanks to his 2 extremely high-level Pokemon. Even though Senta only had 3 Pokemon left, he managed to win this match without a problem. Especially when he summoned his level 60 Dragonite and managed to defeat almost all of Senta's Pokemon with it alone. A champion-level Pokemon is not comparable to a level 55 Pokemon. Especially if the champion-level Pokemon is from a strong Pokemon species like Dragonite. Alex wasn't surprised with this ending and was already expecting it when he first saw this matchup. The only reason why this match even counted as close is because Senta didn't want to end this fight directly and wanted to train his Pokemon. Alex also considered watching these fights live but decided against it. He preferred to watch the fights at home, in a hotel, and still have enough time, for the day, to train his Pokemon than rather watch the fights live. Although he can only see in person information from the participants' Pokemon, he wasn't really interested in them. Probably, only if Ash were still in this tournament would he perhaps watch the fights live. He was a little interested in finding out what was wrong with this weird Pikachu of Ash. When Alex thought about these different things, he noticed how the TV began showing the matchups for today's tournament. Alex wasn't sure for a moment which 2 contestants would make it into the finals. The winner in the match, Koga vs Sabrina, is not so easy to determine because Sabrina not only had a champion-level Pokemon but also a type advantage. In addition, Sabrina can use her psychic powers on her Pokemon. Though she cannot affect or attack her opponent's Pokemon, she is allowed to boost her own Pokemon. With her ridiculous amount of psychic energy, Sabrina can make even a level 60 psychic-type Pokemon so much stronger that it has a similar strength to a level 62 or 63 psychic-type Pokemon. In comparison, level 30 or 40 psychics don't even have enough psychic energy in their bodies to make a level 60 psychic-type Pokemon as powerful as a level 61 Pokemon is. Apart from that, these level 3 and 4 psychics don't even have this ability and have to practice this skill for years before they can use it. Sabrina is just an abnormal monster, with ridiculous talent and psychic capabilities. Koga has 2 champion-level Pokemon, but Alex wasn't sure if it would be strong enough against Sabrina. The match between Koga and Sabrina started. Alex observed the match with an absorbing expression on his face. Sabrina immediately starts the match with her level 60 Alakazam and defeats Koga's first Pokemon, Ariados, directly. Koga then immediately sent his first champion-level Pokemon. Unfortunately, Alakazam was boosted by Sabrina's psychic energy and was no longer comparable to a normal level 60 Pokemon. Koga's first champion-level Pokemon managed to poison Alakazam but was quickly defeated by that Alakazam with 2 psychic. The fight was extremely action-packed and Koga quickly lost 2 more Pokemon, but not without doing some damage to Alakazam. Koga only had 2 Pokemon left, Crobat LV60 and Mook LV59. Luckily, Alakazam only had 40% HP left and already used up all of Sabrina's additional psychic energy. Koga sent Crobat as his next Pokemon, and Crobat managed to defeat Alakazam with a combo attack after enduring a Master Rank Psychic himself. Crobat managed to defeat 2 more of Sabrina's Pokemon even after taking damage from his last fight. Even if he himself was defeated against the second Pokemon. Koga was trying to heal Crobat's HP with Roost and Leech Life, but Crobat was taking too much damage from Sabrina's 2 Pokemon to heal it fast enough. Sabrina had probably sent Espion LV56 and Mr. Mime LV57 against Crobat to inflict as much damage as possible on Crobat. She even uses combo moves to deal even faster damage. It became a 1 Pokemon vs 3 Pokemon fight. Mook LV59 vs Venomoth LV54, Jinx LV55, Alakazam LV55. Although Mook had a level advantage, he wasn't a champion-level Pokemon and didn't have too much of an advantage against 3 Pokemon. Mook managed to defeat 2 of Sabrina's Pokemon, but in these battles, he took too much damage from the Psychic-type moves on the Master Rank, and Mook was defeated in the end. In the end, Sabrina narrowly wins with a level 54 Venomoth against Koga. Chapter 352, Alex was a bit surprised to see that Sabrina actually won against Koga. Even though she had a type advantage is usually not enough to make up for such a large level disadvantage. According to Alex's view, Sabrina's special psychic powers were the main reason why she was able to compensate for this level disadvantage and to win. The type advantage was just the small advantage that tipped the perfect balance to Sabrina's favor. The next fight was a match where Alex was very sure that he knew who will win this fight. He was almost completely sure that Lieutenant Surge will win this match. A champion-level Dragonite will give Lieutenant Surge's team a lot of problems, but Alex doubts that this one champion-level Pokemon can defeat more than 3 Pokemon alone. Alex knew from experience how good Lieutenant Surge was in tactical and fighting, and he didn't think Lieutenant Surge was going to lose this match. The fight happened almost exactly as Alex thought, and Lieutenant Surge wins without much trouble. Sent a level 60 Dragonite causes problems for Lieutenant Surge but was defeated by him after losing 3 Pokemon. Electrode LV57, Jolteon LV58, and Raichu LV59 were all defeated to defeat a level 60 Dragonite, which was an acceptable exchange. Typical elite trainers would probably have had to sacrifice another Pokemon to be able to defeat this Dragonite. Lieutenant Surge uses many interesting tactics in the match, and he even uses his Electrode as a 2-time bomb. Even against a champion-level Pokemon, a Master Rank Explosion from a level 57 Pokemon is not a joke. Although Electrode is the lowest level Pokemon of the 3 Pokemon that fought Dragonite, it was the Pokemon that did the most damage to Dragonite. Especially the fact that Lieutenant Surge had baited the Protect of Dragonite before sending Electrode to this fight was a highlight of this fight for Alex. The rest of the match was pretty straightforward, and Lieutenant Surge only had slight problems against one other Pokemon from Senta. But Dragonite at level 59 was also defeated after Lieutenant Surge lost another Pokemon. Though it turned into a 2v4 battle, Senta's remaining 4 Pokemon were just too weak. A level advantage of 4 or 5 levels was simply too much, and Senta's last 4 Pokemon only narrowly managed to defeat one of Lieutenant Surge's last 2 Pokemon. In the end, Lieutenant Surge only had 1 Pokemon left. But in Alex's opinion, it was still a relatively clear victory. The tournament went into a long break after this fight and entertained in this time the spectators with other activities, like fireworks, music, etc. Alex didn't want to waste an hour and went back to training with his Pokemon following him. He had no interest in different non-Pokemon related activities. Almost all non-Pokemon related activities, Alex would probably be seen by other trainers as a crazy workaholic. Even Maria, who is a workaholic herself, was much more normal compared to Alex. For many trainers, training Pokemon is not particularly interesting and not something they enjoy doing for a long time. But for Alex, it's one of his favorite activities, and every day he thought about different ways to keep the training for his Pokemon interesting and rewarding. Alex would even like to train more if he didn't know that too much training is harmful to the growth of his Pokemon. Above all, he doesn't want his Pokemon to start hating their daily training. If that happens, not only would the effectiveness of training drop sharply, but it would worsen his relationship with his Pokemon. To prevent this, Alex not only regularly gives his Pokemon enough free time, but also made the training as interesting as possible without losing efficiency. It was extremely demanding and challenging to do, but it's also very rewarding. Alex was sure his unique Pokemon training is one of the reasons that the level speed of his Pokemon is so much faster compared to other elite trainers' Pokemon. After being in the hotel's training room with his Pokemon for 1 hour, he went back to his room. Alex looked at the TV with a smile as he thought, even though Lieutenant Surge is better than Sabrina at tactics, it's also his only advantage in this fight. The downside of not having a champion-level Pokemon and Sabrina's psychic powers should be too great to offset it with only tactics. Alex thinks that he and Lieutenant Surge are very similar, even if he thinks that he is a little better tactically. Both are extremely strong tactically, but neither of them can always turn that advantage into a win, especially against opponents with a large power difference to them. Alex especially remembered his fight against Steven's Metagross. What brings a tactical advantage against such an opponent? Luckily against Sabrina, Lieutenant Surge isn't that outclassed and he could win this fight if he plays his cards right. Although, Alex still believes that Sabrina will win this fight. Sabrina won against Koga, who has 2 champion-level Pokemon, which is not something easy to do even with a type advantage. The fight started and Sabrina's first Pokemon was her champion-level Alakazam. She also boosted her Pokemon directly with her psychic energy, making it similar in strength to what a 62 to 63 LV Pokemon would be. Lieutenant Surge immediately changed his Pokemon and he directly started sending his strongest Pokemon against Alakazam. Unfortunately, his Raichu was hit in the head by Alakazam's move, and Raichu was defeated after just 1 move. Although that was a critical hit, it didn't look well that Lieutenant Surge's strongest Pokemon was defeated with just 1 hit. Especially since Raichu was so close to having his combo move ready to use it, made it worse. He was defeated without being able to use it. Alex was even a bit surprised himself. Wow, that's unlucky. Lieutenant Surge tried to turn this fight but couldn't do enough damage to this Alakazam. He lost 4 more Pokemon before he managed to defeat Alakazam despite showing so much tactical skill as a trainer in those battles. It turned into a 1 versus 5 fight. Lieutenant Surge's last Pokemon was also defeated after he managed to defeat 2 of Sabrina's Pokemon, thanks to the suitable tactic of Lieutenant Surge and his small level advantage. But in the end, it wasn't enough. Sabrina won the Kanto Champion Tournament. Chapter 353, 1 week later. Hoenn, Rustboro City. Alex was standing in front of a villa encircled by a large fence and could only be entered through the large entrance gate. The villa was humongous and had several sections in which it was divided. It had everything you can imagine. A large pool, several high-class cars, playgrounds, a very large garden, a sauna, and a battlefield for Pokemon fights. The small mine that was near the villa, however, was the thing that caught Alex's attention the most. Alex stood by this villa for the second time and he didn't look at all the luxurious things but at the mine with a curious expression. He wasn't quite sure why this mine is here, but he would like to know what exactly is there. Rare Pokemon, gems, or maybe even something completely different. Gardevoir said telepathically, "Father, it's that psychic Pokemon again." "You mean the same Pokemon that had us observing the first time we were here?" "Yes, Father." Alex showed a curious expression as he said, "Can you now perceive its strength, or where is this Pokemon observing us from?" Gardevoir said in a slightly sad tone, "I'm sorry, Father. I still can't tell exactly how strong it is. It should be stronger than me." Alex showed a small smile as he said, "Why are you apologizing to me? It's not like you did anything wrong." After a brief moment of silence, Alex began to look slightly serious as he said, "Kid, what's wrong? Why are you so sad about such a small thing? If you have problems, you can tell me. I will do my best to help you. Gardevoir hesitated for a few moments, but she didn't say a word. When Alex thought that Gardevoir wouldn't say anything, she started to say in a small voice. I'm afraid the tone with which Gardevoir said these words were full of fear and worry. Alex's face wrinkled when he heard that. He has known Gardevoir all her life, and he realized how serious Gardevoir's fear is as soon as he heard her tone. Alex tried to say in a very soothing tone, "Why?" Gardevoir didn't want to answer, but she knew she couldn't get out of this topic anymore. Her father wouldn't let go as long as he didn't know what was wrong with her. This persistence is a blessing and a curse. She tried to say in a less emotional tone, "Father, are you disappointed in me?" Alex was speechless for a moment. After processing these words, he said with an angry expression, "Are you stupid? How can a clever Pokemon like you come up with such stupid ideas? Listen carefully. I've never been disappointed with you. Stupid kid." Gardevoir showed a relieved expression as she felt/heard Alex's emotions and words, though he had repeatedly called her stupid. She exited her Pokeball and looked at Alex with a slightly apologetic look. "Sorry, Dad. I said something very stupid." Alex, who saw that Gardevoir didn't doubt his words, smiled slightly. Although his words were still very harsh, "You're right. You really said something very stupid. How do you come up with something like that?" Gardevoir suddenly showed a nervous expression. After a moment of hesitation, she said, I feel like I'm getting more and more useless every day. My potential is poor compared to the other Pokemon, and my existence is wasting so much money. If I can't even sense Pokemon anymore, what am I good for?" Alex's eyes carried a soft manifestation as he said, "Gardevoir, we're a family. Usefulness isn't everything in a family. It's that simple. That being said, everyone in the family contributes their part. Each family member has their talents and weaknesses." After a moment, Alex said, "As for the money, I'd never considered money very important, and you don't need to worry about it." Gardevoir showed a hesitant expression, but Alex displayed a serious expression. "Gardevoir, the decision is already made. I will use money until you, Scizor, and Crobat have an SS rank potential." Gardevoir saw the firmness in Alex's eyes as he said those words, and she started to get tears in her eyes. Alex hugged Gardevoir when he noticed this. He also said, "You're really worrying too much. It's not only for your future but also for the whole family. Do you know how much more useful you get in the future if you become an SS rank Pokemon? What's a little money in comparison?" Gardevoir knew that her born potential wasn't that great and that her father could find a Psychic-type Pokemon with better born potential than her. She's a smart Pokemon and understood how much cheaper that would be. Gardevoir gave her father a hug as she thought, "Thank you, Father. I'll make you proud." Chapter 354, Alex went to the entrance gate with a camera and pushed the button attached on the side. "Hello, this is Alex Stark." After a few seconds, Alex heard a political voice, "One moment, sir, please. I will inform the young master immediately." Before he visits Stephen, he, of course, called Stephen and agreed on this day. Alex, who saw the gate open, slowly started walking towards Stephen's villa. This was his second visit, and this time almost all the butlers and maids knew Alex. He has been a good friend of Stephen's for about 1 year, and he stayed in this villa for almost 2 months on his last visit. So that the most maids and butlers have already seen him several times and know who Alex is. When he was walking on the long road leading to the villa, he saw several flying-type Pokemon flying in the air. This time, they don't even look at him and just ignore his existence. Alex checked the info on these 12 Pokemon and he hardly noticed any differences from the last time. Each of these 12 Pokemon was at least LV30, and 5 were even on the elite rank. In addition, one of these Pokemon was at LV51. It seems like these Pokemon hardly train and get stronger very slowly. The land that the Stephen family owned was enormous. It took Alex several minutes to reach the main door of the villa. At the entrance, several butlers and maids and his friend Stephen were waiting with a smile. Stephen flashed a smile when he saw Alex. "Alex, it's nice to see your average face again. I kinda miss the days when we trained together." Alex also flashed a smile. "It's nice to see you too. I'm actually a little excited. I'm especially looking forward to beating your Metagross." After their greetings, both of them start to go into the mansion and continue to talk to each other as they go. Stephen just shook his head as he said, "Too bad, I thought you'd take the bait." Alex flashed a smug smile. "Ha, you still have a lot to learn, buddy. But never mind, not everyone can be as good as me." Stephen showed a stunned expression. "You mean at making fun of your friends? Are you really proud of a talent like that?" Alex rolled his eyes as he answered, "It's not like you don't do it yourself." Stephen flashed a smile at Alex's expression. "Haha, what can I say? You're a bad influence." Alex replied in an ironic tone, "Yes, yes, the bad and despicable Alex is to blame again. After all, you can't take responsibility for yourself. Only poor people do that." Stephen mimicked Alex's ironic tone and voice as he said, "Yeah, of course. Rich people are bad and poor people are good. Especially poor people like Alex, who only earn several million a month and have just enough money to survive, are very good individuals." Alex noticed himself that he really appears a bit ridiculous when he disses Stephen for his money, which he is ridiculously wealthy himself. Stephen didn't know exactly how much he was making. He's even richer than Stephen thinks. Stephen guided Alex into one of his rooms and they both sat down in a comfortable chair as they continued talking. "Okay, Alex, joke aside, it's really nice to see you." Alex simply smiled and he just held out one of his hands, while that hand is curled into a fist. Stephen mimicked this action and accepted the bro fist. After that moment, Stephen showed a curious expression as he said, "You already told me you wanted to talk to me about something important, even if you didn't tell me exactly what." "I've been already waiting 3 days." Alex said, "Wow, you're really impatient." After a short delay, Alex displayed a serious expression. "I came not only to train with you but also to propose a partnership that will benefit us both. But before we talk about it, I want to make it clear that it's purely business and that your answer doesn't change anything." Alex then flashed a playful smile as he said, "Don't worry, you won't lose your best friend." Stephen showed just a small smile when he heard Alex's joke. Although he was actually a bit worried that if he didn't accept this business proposal, it could damage his good friendship with Alex. Thankfully, he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. He had known Alex for about a year and Stephen believed Alex when he said that he didn't mind if Stephen rejected his proposal. Stephen really appreciates how Alex immediately put that worry to rest for him. Stephen showed a small smile when he heard this joke from his friend. He thought with that little smile, "You're joking but you're not entirely wrong." He looked at Alex with an expression awaiting further explanation. Alex showed a serious expression again as he said, "Stephen, before I explain my idea, you have to promise me that you won't tell anyone what I'm about to tell you. Not your friends, your father, or your mother. Can you promise me that?" Stephen showed a serious expression when he said, "I promise, my friend." Alex trusts almost no one in this world, but Stephen was one of the 2 people he trusted outside of his family. He didn't know if that decision was the right one, but Alex felt Stephen wouldn't betray him. Although this decision is not very logical and Alex's distrusting nature alerted him, Alex still trusts Stephen. That was one of the few moments where Alex followed his emotions. Alex didn't know if he would regret this decision, but he hoped that his only friend wouldn't betray him. Chapter 355, Alex said in a serious tone, "Stephen, did you know the business strategy to buy low-level A-rank Pokemon and sell them after they are on the S rank?" Stephen showed a puzzled expression. Yes? But that's not a surefire way to make money. Even with the optimal purchase of Pokemon and items, it's easy to lose money if you're unlucky." Alex just nodded and watched Stephen's expression for a moment. Stephen then showed a serious expression. "Alex, if you're planning on getting into this business, I've got to warn you. Even if you train these Pokemon and use their evolution to buy less expensive items, it's a gamble on how many of them will become an S-rank Pokemon. This is a gamble with relatively lacking odds. Alex flashed a smile as he said, and what if I have a way to get all A-rank Pokemon in their first evolution, with cheap items and minimal training, to the S-rank? Steven showed a doubting expression, as he said, impossible. Even a 40% or 50% chance is unheard of. A 100% chance is not possible. All Pokemon are too different for that to be possible. Alex said in a calm tone, yeah, that's true. I can't bring random A-rank Pokemon, with these requirements, on the S-rank. Steven says, then, what are you talking about? Alex with a serious expression on his face cut Steven off. But, I've got a way of finding out about how far an A-rank Pokemon is from becoming an S-rank Pokemon. Steven showed a shocked expression. He saw Alex's serious expression and immediately understood that Alex meant these words completely seriously. But he couldn't believe Alex. That was almost impossible. Ah. Is that a joke? Alex, that can't be real? Alex showed a calm expression as he said, it's true. How else do you think I have so much money? Or why my Pokemon all have such good potential? I'm an orphan if you haven't noticed. Steven didn't have time to think about Alex's joke when he thought about Alex's previous question. As soon as he thought about it for a few seconds, he realized that Alex really had several Pokemon with ridiculously good potential and a ridiculous amount of money for a trainer who's been a Pokemon trainer for just over a year. Steven began to believe Alex's statements. He then looked at Alex as he said, you really are a fool. It would be better if you took this secret to your grave and didn't tell anyone about it. Don't you know how dangerous that is? You're not stupid, Alex. Steven showed an emotional expression as he said, why are you telling me this? Alex just showed a calm expression. Will you break your word and tell someone else? What? No. I would never do that. Alex then said in a calm tone, then it's not a problem. He really didn't think Steven would break his word and betray him. While he didn't tell Steven about his system or how exactly he knew which A-rank Pokemon were about to reach S-rank, it's still dangerous for him to tell somebody. Only Maria and Steven knew about it. Even though both of them have no exact idea how Alex can find out which A-rank Pokemon are ahead of reaching the S-rank. Although Alex's Pokemon are the first to know about it. Alex's Pokemon have similar knowledge, albeit a bit more vague than what Steven or Maria knows. All they know is that Alex can tell roughly how much longer it will take them to improve their potential. Alex told them not to tell any other person or Pokemon, and he trusts his Pokemon to stick to it. Maria knows about it too, and Alex learned that his trust in Maria was justified. She doesn't ask him how exactly he figured out that an A-rank Pokemon was about to reach S-rank. Maria acted as if Alex had never told her anything like that and didn't selfishly try to find out the method from him. In this case, there is no method that other people can imitate. Not that Steven or Maria have this knowledge. Steven just looked at Alex speechless. He didn't understand how Alex could say something like that with such a calm expression. Did Alex really trust him so considerably? Alex said in a calm tone, I don't need your help to train the Pokemon, and you just need to sell the S-rank Pokemon. Steven shows a thoughtful expression as he says, Alex, that's not an easy task. Alex flashed a slightly confused expression. I thought that the Devon Corporation was licensed to sell Pokemon. It shouldn't be that hard to find some buyers with your connection. Selling Pokemon requires a license that only the Alliance can issue. Although this rule does not prevent private selling and buying of Pokemon, it is necessary when selling mini Pokemon. The black market is another way, but this way doesn't let Alex sell S-rank Pokemon. Steven said with a serious expression, yeah, if you want to sell a bunch of S-rank Pokemon once or twice, then that's no problem. But, I don't have enough connection to support a steady supply of S-rank Pokemon. Alex nodded and said, okay, let's do one trade first and see how it goes. I will bring you 20 S-rank Pokemon under level 25 within 2 weeks. Don't worry, the 20 Pokemon will only be Pokemon of very expensive species. The profit shouldn't be small after you sell these 20 Pokemon. Alex then started smiling as he said, let's talk about your cut. Steven shook his head as he said, Alex, you don't have to do this. It's not really a lot of work. Alex showed a serious expression, although it's not much work, it's your connection and you should have a share of the benefit. Steven saw that Alex wasn't going to change his mind and he said, okay, what do you think of 10%? Alex, hearing this, didn't know what to feel when he heard how little Steven wants. He couldn't believe that he now has to negotiate up and not down. Alex looked at Steven with a serious expression. Steven, can you please stop? This is getting ridiculous. Chapter 356. After 5 minutes, Alex and Steven had both agreed on a percentage. Steven will get 25% of the profits for finding customers and selling the S-rank Pokemon. Although Steven himself feels that 1/4 of the income is too much, Alex was very stubborn in it, not to lower this share any further. Alex didn't want to take advantage of Steven's friendship and he wanted to give Steven a reasonable share. Steven may not have to work much for his share, but his contribution is not small. Although he sees it a little differently. Steven looked at Alex with a hesitant expression. Alex, that's a bit too much. I hardly have a job but I get paid so much for it. You don't have to give me so much just because I'm your friend. Alex showed a tired expression as he said, oh my Arceus. Don't you really understand why you're getting so much? I'm not giving you too much and probably even a bit too little. You should complain that I'm giving you too little. Steven gave a doubtful expression as he said, too little? Are you stupid? Alex's eyes started to twitch slightly when he heard that. I'm stupid, ah. You are stupid. Do you know how many advantages partnering with you brings me? I can name you without even thinking about it 5 big advantages. Without giving Steven a chance, Alex started voicing these 5 advantages. 1. Your good relationship with many wealthy households makes it much easier to quickly sell a small number of S-rank Pokemon. You should understand that it is not easy to find customers for S-rank Pokemon. 2. Due to the size of your future company, you give the customers security that hardly any other salesman can offer. It is very unlikely that you would damage the reputation of your company for a relatively big profit. It is unlikely that he would lie about the potential of the Pokemon or sell Pokemon that are very difficult to control. 3. Because of point 2, you can even sell these S-rank Pokemon for a higher price than other less reliable sellers. Similar high amounts as the annual auction of the Alliance. 4. Because of Devon Corporation's size, it's less suspicious to sell a handful of S-rank Pokemon on an irregular basis. The Alliance and other companies would just think that Devon Corporation was testing whether they could make a profit with this business strategy and think nothing more. 5. I trust you not to betray me for money. I am a very suspicious person and cannot trust another businessman. You should know that trust is very important for a good long-term partnership. Alex looked at Steven as he said, is that enough? Steven was momentarily speechless that Alex could name 5 reasons so quickly. Mainly because the logic of these 5 reasons is very difficult to refute. Alex, your reasons are very good. But you didn't just think of that within seconds. Alex flashed a smile as he said, well, what did you expect? Do you think I would give away such a large amount of profit without realizing the benefit of this partnership? Steven just shook his head as he said, but, you bring an advantage to this partnership that no other person in this world can bring. Having the method of figuring out which A-rank Pokemon can easily reach the S-rank. Only you can do that, or maybe a few legendary Pokemon can do that too. But I can't probably do any business with these Pokemon, can I? Alex understood why Steven is so reluctant to take so much. His ability is really special and unique. He showed a calm expression. That's why I take 75% of the income. Both parties bring important advantages. Steven started to nod with these words. On this point, he could agree with Alex. Okay, let's talk about how long it will take you to get those 20 S-rank Pokemon ready. Alex showed a thoughtful expression, hard to say. But it shouldn't take more than 2 weeks. Though it will probably take me 1 week to find the suitable A-rank Pokemon on the black market. Steven nodded when he said, "Okay, when you're done with it you can train these Pokemon here." Alex flashed a smile. "Sounds good. I think I'll start right away. See you in a week." 1 week later. If he's anyways going to visit all of Hoenn's black market places, Alex doesn't want to waste the chance to make a little extra money on the side. It didn't take Alex a week to visit every major black market in Hoenn, and it only took that long because Alex took his time and bought all the A-rank Pokemon he could find. At the same time, he sold all A-rank Pokemon with silver and deep silver potential using his old method. He also sold deep silver Pokemon with no evolution, or Pokemon with evolution with a high condition. He sold 260 A-rank Pokemon and made about 13.5 million Pokedollars after all deductions. Unfortunately, Alex didn't find an S-rank Pokemon or his profit would be much higher. Although this amount is very high for most elite trainers, it is no longer a large sum for Alex. Especially because in 2 weeks he will earn a multiple of that. Chapter 357, 3 weeks later. Alex started training the most suitable 20 deep silver Pokemon and the ones that would bring the most money that he could find in Hoenn. It wasn't that hard to convince these Pokemon to hard train after talking to these 20 Pokemon for a bit. Alex truthfully said to these Pokemon that he will train them for 2 weeks and help them get to the S rank. His Pokemon back Alex's words and give Alex's words more believability. These Pokemon that had been in captivity for weeks or months understood the importance of good potency and were very cooperative with Alex when they understood that he was making them stronger. Even if they are later sold, they retain this strength. They have no reason to refuse Alex's assistance. Alex treated these Pokemon neutrally and politely as long as they didn't cause any problems so that these Pokemon became more cooperative when trained. After only 12 days, each of these Pokemon evolves and reaches the shallow gold potential via the items. Although the cooperation of these Pokemon was one reason it was so comfortable and fast, another reason was that Alex chose Pokemon that don't need many levels, on average, to evolve. Or Pokemon that only need certain items to evolve. After all of these 20 Pokemon reached the S rank, Steven immediately started looking for buyers. Because of his big connections, he found a lot of people that were interested in some of these S-rank Pokemon. For almost all trainers, an S-rank Pokemon is the highest imaginable Pokemon to have. Even for rich trainers, S-rank Pokemon is almost always the max you can own unless you're spending a ridiculous amount of money on one Pokemon with a good born potential. After less than 10 days, Steven successfully sold 20 S-rank Pokemon and negotiated almost the top price for each of these Pokemon. Even after deducting the Pokemon food, and most importantly, the items Alex gave to the 20 Pokemon to successfully improve their potential, the turnover was still more than 350 million Pokedollars. Alex gave Steven his cut and kept more than 260 million Pokedollars. He had over 280 million Pokedollars in total, which was a ridiculously large sum, even for Alex. Steven and Alex were both extremely pleased with this big win in such a short amount of time. Even for Steven, 87+ million Pokedollars is no small sum. Especially when Steven considers that he hardly has to work for it. Alex is also training his Pokemon during this time and he notices that his 3 starting Pokemon are still at level 50. Even Bastiodon leveled up yesterday and he reached level 50. This again showed Alex that his 3 starter Pokemon need to improve their potential as soon as possible or they will be able to keep up with his other Pokemon. After Alex got the money from Steve, he bought items worth 230 million for his 3 starter Pokemon. Alex didn't buy many items but every item he bought was of the highest quality. Pokemon items are much less effective if the Pokemon that consumes them has better potential than the item itself. With Pokemon with low or medium potential, it is hardly a problem to find items with better potential, but with deep gold Pokemon it is no longer easy or cheap. Because of this, Alex could only buy items from SS rank Pokemon, which of course were very expensive and often couldn't be found in large quantities. Because these items are rare and hard to find for the market price, Alex also bought items that were a bit overpriced. He pays 10 to 15% extra for some of his items that he wouldn't pay if he had the time. But Alex couldn't wait several months just to save some money. Alex used his money quickly and ended up with just over 50 million poke dollars left. Although he spent his hard-earned money again within days, Alex felt it was worth it. He had now bought a total of 320 million poke dollars worth of Pokemon items for his 3 starter Pokemon. Between 310 and 300 million poke dollars worth of Pokemon items considering he paid extra for some items. A couple of months ago, for Crobat, Gardevoir, Scizor together, Alex bought items worth around 90 million poke dollars. Alex hopes that after his 3 Pokemon absorb the energy of all his newly purchased items, they will reach the SS rank. After buying in total more than 100 million poke dollars worth of Pokemon items per Pokemon, Alex hopes that's enough and that he doesn't need any more items. Alex doesn't know if perhaps 100 million is too little and that he might need 120, 150, or even more than 200 million per Pokemon to get his 3 starter Pokemon to the SS rank. This knowledge is not only unknown to Alex but to all other trainers. How hard is it to get a born Deep Silver Pokemon on the Deep Gold potential to the SS rank without an evolution? In order to be able to answer this question, trainers need to know that there are Deep Silver Pokemon and find a way to distinguish them in the A rank. However, to Alex's knowledge, he is the only person who knows this. Alex is completely on his own and all he can only do is an estimate. Because he knows how much money and items he has to spend on a born shallow gold Pokemon so that it can reach the SS rank, he can use this knowledge to make a very rough estimate. Chapter 358. Alex sits in the kitchen of the guest room in Steven's mansion and eats his breakfast together with his Pokemon. He checked the information from his Pokemon, like every morning, to see if anything changed from the last time. Fuck, it really wasn't enough. When Alex looked at the potential of his 3 starter Pokemon, he saw that they still have Deep Gold potential. Yesterday these 3 Pokemon each consumed their last item and they still could not improve their potential. He divided all the items he bought for his 3 starter Pokemon so that within a month, his Pokemon could absorb the energy from these items into their bodies. I half expected it, but the total of 320 million poke dollars worth of Pokemon items isn't enough, is really. However, Alex doesn't think he has to give up much more money so that his Pokemon finally improve their potential. After all, for Bastiodon it only costs around 50 to 65 million poke dollars worth of Pokemon items and the difference between a born Deep Silver Pokemon and a born Shallow Gold Pokemon is most likely not ridiculously bigger. Alex didn't think he had to spend more than 130 million poke dollars per Pokemon. Or he hoped not. The biggest problem is that his 3 starting Pokemon have started leveling slower than his other Pokemon. Alex looked at his 3 starter Pokemon with an uneasy expression. If he doesn't quickly improve the potential of his 3 starters, they will be overtaken by all other Pokemon. He also needs to find an item from a full-blood legendary Pokemon to improve Ditto's mediocre potential. But when Alex looked at his other Pokemon, he started smiling again. Ninetales, Banette, Bastiodon, Blaziken, and Umbreon all trained to move to the Master rank in about 2 months. Training non-innate talent move to the Master rank takes only 2 months for an SS rank Pokemon in the optimal training circumstance. Seadra and Dano have also made great progress. Especially the 2 new moves these 2 Pokemon can now use brought great joy to Alex. Dragon Rush is an extremely powerful physical dragon-type move and extremely useful once Dano evolves into Zweilous. Dragon Dance is the move that drew the most attention from Alex. Dragon Dance is not only extremely good in the game but also in this world. This ridiculous move was one of the many reasons why Dragon-type Pokemon are so popular and strong in this world. Even if it's not an innate talent move, Alex plans on training this move to the Master rank as soon as possible. After Alex and his Pokemon finished their breakfast, they made their way to Steven's training room where they will, today, hold their rematch. Steven and Alex had agreed on this day weeks ago and were each preparing for this fight. Although Alex lost his last fight against Steven, he doesn't think this time will be as obvious as last time. After a Pokemon reaches level 45, it starts leveling up much more slowly than before. The same thing happens at levels 50, 55, and 60. Steven's Metagross will still have a level advantage, but it's not as big as it was last time. Chapter 359, Alex entered the big exercise area and greeted Steven, who stand already there, with a slight smile. Steven raised his hand slightly and Alex also raised his hand in greeting, as they high-fived. Morning, Steven. How was your morning, Dot? Good. How was yours? Alex flashed a small smile as he said, not bad so far, but if everything goes according to plan, today is going to be an extremely good day for me. Steven shook his head with a smile when he heard that. He then said, Alex, it looks like I'm going to screw up your day today. I don't think you stand a chance against me. Because the two trained together, not only Alex but also Steven knew the levels of all Pokemon. Alex also talked a lot with Steven and didn't keep secrets about the levels of his Pokemon so that Steven even knows the exact levels of Alex's Pokemon. Although it would be a bit better for Alex not to reveal the exact levels of his Pokemon for the competition against Steven, Alex doesn't think it's a big disadvantage for him. Besides that, Steven vaguely knows the level of Alex's Pokemon anyway, and it's just a bit more accurate info for Steven than he already had. Alex looked at Steven and said, I can't understand why you're so sure that you will win. Steven looked serious as he replied, as a trainer, I can't seem insecure before a fight. If I have an insecure expression, how are my Pokemon supposed to think we can win? Besides, I don't think I have no chance to win against you. Alex agreed with Steven's words with a nod. Though many trainers don't pay attention to the morale of their Pokemon, is it an important point that can even turn a lost battle into a win. Steven didn't have the tactical talent of him and Lieutenant Surge or the superhuman abilities of Sabrina or Koga, but Steven wasn't without his advantages. He wasn't at the highest level in terms of tactics, but still at a very high level. Alex talks to Steven a lot and he knew Steven had a lot of tactical skills. Steven also had a very good relationship with his Pokemon and Alex saw how Steven always managed to motivate his Pokemon. In addition, Steven is extremely talented in training his Pokemon, speed and quality, and is only slightly worse than Alex. In Alex's opinion, Steven is an excellent all-around trainer. Steven looked at Alex. I assume you have your list ready? The list is a piece of paper listing which 6 Pokemon Alex chose to use against Steven. Alex pulled a small note from his pocket and looked at Steven with a waiting expression. Steven also took a note out of his pocket and gave it to Alex. Both had settled on a 6 vs 6 format where no Pokemon could be switched. The potential was not written on the two lists. Steven Team. Metagross, LV54, Diamond. Skarmory, LV52, Shallow Diamond. Aggron, LV49, Shallow Diamond. Cradily, LV48, Shallow Diamond. Armaldo, LV48, Shallow Diamond. Claydol, LV46, Shallow Diamond. VS. Alex Team. Crobat, LV51, Deep Gold. Sizer, LV51, Deep Gold. Gardevoir, LV51, Deep Gold. Ditto, LV49, Gold. Umbreon, LV51, Shallow Diamond. Blaziken, LV51, Shallow Diamond. Alex had a decision to make about which 6 Pokemon to pick against Steven, like he did in the Kanto Champion Tournament. In the end, he came up with the same 2 Pokemon as last time. Ditto and Bastiodon. Alex chose Ditto this time, even though he had a 2-level disadvantage to Bastiodon. Bastiodon just had a bad matchup against Steven's team. Steven's team had many Pokemon that have a type advantage over Bastiodon and Earthquake on the Expert or even the Master rank. In comparison, Ditto seemed a much more sensible and a better choice to Alex. Alex just looked at Steven's letter and said with a smile, Are you ready? Steven said nothing and went to his position. He showed a serious expression as he waited for Alex. Alex's expression also became more serious and he too started walking to his position. Both called their first Pokemon at the same time, as they agreed before the fight to give no one an advantage in the beginning. Cradley v/S Crobat was a relatively quick fight even though Crobat didn't have an easy fight. Steven uses a very clever and annoying tactic that favors the can't switch rule. Cradley immediately uses Sandstorm on the master rank, and after that only the moves Recover on the master rank and Rock Slide on the expert rank. Apart from the fact that it also used Protect once. Crobat managed to win this fight thanks to Toxic, Leech Life, and his higher level. But it wasn't without taking a lot of damage himself. Alex also noted that Crobat's major disadvantage in this fight wasn't his Pokemon type disadvantage but that he had no moves on the master rank. If it weren't for Leech Life on the expert rank, Alex wouldn't have believed that Crobat would have won this fight. Crobat v/S Aggron. Sandstorm on the master rank was still out of the arena and continued to deal a lot of damage to Crobat. Crobat didn't have much HP left. Alex tried a hit-and-run tactic, but this was immediately interrupted by Steven's instruction. Aggron uses Rock Polish on the expert rank, forcing Alex to abandon his hit-and-run tactic. Alex didn't want to allow Aggron to buff himself to have a huge advantage against his next Pokemon, so that he had to change his tactics. Crobat then went on offense and was defeated after taking 1/3 of Aggron's HP with Confuse Ray and Shadow Ball. Alex looked at Aggron and suddenly changed his expression slightly when he noticed that Aggron was now at level 50. Aggron leveled up after beating Crobat. Alex thought, my luck is really... When he saw that. Chapter 360, Scizor v/S Aggron. This fight wasn't very fast but was decided to Scizor with the moves, Swords Dance, and Brick Break. Though Steven didn't allow Scizor to utilize Swords Dance too often and constantly inflicted damage on Scizor. Only showed who wins against when. Skarmory vs Scizor. Ditto vs Skarmory. Claydol vs Ditto. Gardevoir vs Claydol. Armaldo vs Gardevoir. Alex saved his two most useful Pokemon against Metagross for this one. Although he wasn't very sure about his chances against this monster, it shouldn't be impossible to defeat him in a 1v2 fight. 3-level advantage is not small but also not as big as in the last fight against Metagross. Alex looked at the 4 master rank moves and started thinking about how best to defeat this monster. In the end, he decided to start with Blaziken. Alex said loudly, 3, 2, 1, go. Immediately after Alex said that he said, E3. Steven flashed a smile and said at the same time, R2. Alex, hearing this, felt for a few seconds like Steven was teasing him. In all other fights his Pokemon don't use secret signs, but in this fight, Steven suddenly started using one. That was extremely annoying to Alex. Although Alex can understand why Steven is only trying so to memorize these secret signs for his ace monster and not all his Pokemon. The big disadvantage with these secret signs is that you have to learn them and that they have to be replaced regularly. In tournaments even after each fight. Or the next one against knows immediately what these secret signs mean. Also, your Pokemon must be willing to do the same and learn these secret signs. But the biggest problem is for the trainers with a lot of Pokemon. If you're not smart enough, it's hard to quickly learn and remember new secret signs after each fight for every Pokemon. Even if you're smart, it takes time to do so. Blaziken runs away from Metagross as Metagross is chasing him. Metagross was faster than Blaziken and doesn't take that long to get in range. But before he got within reach, Blaziken used Sunny Day. Immediately afterward, Blaziken uses Quick Attack to not attack but to build up a new distance again. She uses it purely to build up a big distance from Metagross. Steven flashed a smile as he saw this. He thought, Alex, you can't always expect the same trick to always work. I watch your fights too often that it works against me. You have to come up with something new. Although I have to admit I was lucky that it worked. Metagross just pretends to prepare a melee move to bait Blaziken to waste his Quick Attack on. Psychic was the move that Metagross was preparing. This move didn't have infinite range, but it wasn't as small as melee moves. Metagross came into range almost immediately and it used Psychic. Blaziken, who was preparing another move, didn't have time to use Protect. She was hit and loses more than 50% of her HP. Steven said with a happy expression. Metagross ended with Psychic. Alex modeled a serious expression but was inwardly happy that Steven gave the order. Metagross and Blaziken both prepare their moves. Blaziken finished first and used Overheat, and then immediately got ready to use Protect. Metagross was a step too late to finish preparing his move and couldn't use Protect. It was hit by Overheat. Overheat, Master Rank plus Sunny Day. Master Rank was a ridiculously powerful attack and Metagross loses around 40% of the HP from it. Metagross ignored its pain and it used Psychic. Blaziken's shield from Protect only lasts 1 second and Blaziken still took most of the damage from Psychic. But because of that, she was at least not knocked unconscious. Blaziken didn't wait for Alex's orders and started preparing a new move again. Before this fight, Alex gave Blaziken a plan so she knew what to do in which situation. It's not perfect, but she knew what she had to do about this situation. Metagross, again. Also, don't let Blaziken get in melee range. Blaziken and Metagross finish their moves at the same time this time. Metagross uses Psychic and knocks Blaziken unconscious. Blaziken used Will-O-Wisp and managed to give Metagross a status effect. Will-O-Wisp is even enhanced with Sunny Day, which Alex didn't expect before his many tests. But that's why he often made tests with moves and checked what had changed from the games to this reality. Alex looked at Metagross and said, "Come on. Just a little more." He was so close to victory. Chapter 361, Will-O-Wisp, is particularly effective because Metagross doesn't have a special type move on the Master Rank move other than Psychic. Without Will-O-Wisp's nerf, Metagross's Master Rank moves are way too powerful to effectively heal against it. Alex wasn't even sure if Will-O-Wisp was enough. Metagross was 3 full levels higher than Blaziken and at a level as high as 54. The effectiveness of status moves is greatly reduced at a large level disadvantage. Luckily, status effects moves are also more effective against Pokemon that are weak to those moves. So the Metagross is particularly sensitive to the burned status effects. I didn't think that up just now. I've often mentioned that about poisoning and explained how it works in this world. Alex summoned his last Pokemon. 3, 2, 1, go. Alex said quickly, D5. Steven said at the same time, A1. Metagross ran toward Umbreon as it prepared a move. At the same time, Umbreon moved away from Metagross as she prepared her own move. Alex, seeing this, didn't change his expression but thought happily, this is going very well. Steven doesn't have as much experience as I do with short commands and his Metagross isn't used to it yet. In an unexpected situation, Umbreon should react better. His plan for this fight can be summed up in 2 words. Calculated gamble. Metagross finished first but wasn't immediately within reach to use Meteor Mash. Although Metagross was significantly faster than Umbreon at level 54, it wasn't fast enough to get into melee range that quickly. Alex doesn't have to be a genius to expect that Metagross will most likely prepare the Meteor Mash move. He gave it a plus 80% chance to happen and bet his whole plan on it. All other Master Rank moves make no sense for Alex and only Earthquake would be a possible alternative that is slightly worse. Umbreon was hit and lost around 30% of her HP from the hit. At the same time, Umbreon uses her move, Work Up. Steven, who also noticed that, showed an annoyed expression. He knew that the longer he would allow Umbreon to do this, that so more dangerous it became for his Metagross. Metagross, A1. Alex, hearing this, smiled. He had the feeling that Steven really only started with these secret signs yesterday. Umbreon didn't need an order from Alex and started preparing a move beforehand. Metagross finished first though, and it's using Meteor Mash again. Umbreon endured the pain and she only had a little over 40% of her HP left. Immediately after, she uses Payback and does a lot of damage to Metagross. Metagross only had about 35% of his HP left. But Steven smiled as he saw Metagross let out a loud battle cry. Alex didn't know this, but it was a signal to Steven from Metagross that after this attack he felt his body strengthened. Meteor Mash has a 20% chance of raising the user's attack by one stage in the game. But this chance is not so static in this world and can be affected by level advantage and move mastery. Metagross and Umbreon started preparing their moves almost simultaneously. Even if Metagross had started before her, Umbreon didn't even try to run away because Metagross was faster anyway and just stood still. Metagross used Meteor Mash, and Umbreon felt that she was about to pass out. She lasted long enough and managed to use Rest. Umbreon's wounds were all beginning to heal and started to fall asleep. Steven flashed a smile as he said, Metagross, get as close to Umbreon as possible and use Earthquake. Alex showed a serious expression. Earthquake, at such a short distance, is extremely damaging. Especially because Umbreon asleep had more mass touching the ground than she has awake. Umbreon uses Sleep Talk, and because it's on the master rank she could even choose the move she prepares. Although she can't move her body as effectively while sleeping, which Steven takes advantage of. Only after a melee move is prepared by Sleep Talk does Umbreon automatically run to the nearest enemy. Metagross used Earthquake and hit Umbreon in the worst possible place. A critical hit. Umbreon had less than 20% HP left and would not take another attack. But she used Payback immediately afterward, and this Payback had significantly more energy than the last one. Metagross was hit and screams in agony as it falls to the ground, unconscious. A critical hit. Alex showed a stunned expression. Was that a coincidence? Or does Payback have a special feature like that? Chapter 362, Steven quickly ran to his Metagross and healed it with a potion. He had imagined it would be a difficult fight to win, but he hadn't thought that he would actually lose. Alex had actually never won against him before. Steven then walked towards Alex with a slightly disappointed expression. He looked at Alex as he said, I didn't think I was really going to lose to you. Alex flashed a small smile upon hearing this, though he said in a ridiculed tone, You bastard. Why does that sound more like an insult? Can't you say something else? Steven rolled his eyes as he replied, You really expect me to be happy that you beat me? And hear you say that I'm a bastard. Didn't know you were such a bad loser. Steven replied in a dry tone, Not everyone is a good loser like you. Alex and Steven talked and joked for a bit before Alex said with a smile, Rematch? Let's fight each other as often and seriously as possible. It's not easy to find such a strong opponent on a similar level. Steven approved. The two trained together for 7 days and fought a 6 versus 6 battle for 30 times. The 6 Pokemon that Alex used were the same as the first match, except that Ditto was replaced with Bastiodon for half of those matches. Steven won 19 of the 30 matches and was able to repay Alex for the defeat of the first match. However, Alex wasn't surprised that Steven would win most of the fights against him. In sheer strength without the influence of the trainers, Steven's team is a bit stronger than Alex's team. Alex could only win the first match with a tactical advantage, and this advantage weakens after each match. Without the element of surprise, his tactics aren't even half as effective, and Alex can't come up with new effective tactics for every match. A few weeks later, Alex trained not only his Pokemon but also another 20 Deep Silver Pokemon along with 50 Silver Pokemon in this period. After the first sale, Alex realized he had made a big mistake. He trained 20 Deep Silver Pokemon together, and all these 20 Pokemon became jointly an S-rank Pokemon. When these 20 Pokemon this information disclosed to somebody that they are bought from through a Psychic-type Pokemon or other means, they can quickly arouse suspicion. Luckily, he quickly discovered this error and had enough time to correct it. When something like this happened for the first time, it wasn't enough to immediately make Alex and Steven suspicious, even if one of these Pokemon talked about it. Only if this happened 2 or more times in a row would people quickly notice something, or not. Alex didn't even have to give an expensive item to those 50 silver Pokemon and just pretend he gave them an expensive item. If he pretended to give an item to all 70 trained Pokemon, one at a time, and immediately sold the 50 silver Pokemon after that, the 20 deep silver Pokemon wouldn't notice anything unusual. The only downside was that he had to spend more money on Pokemon food. But that was hardly a disadvantage. Most of the money consumption comes from the Pokemon by price and the item anyway, to improve the potential. He gave these 20 S-rank Pokemon to Steven and Steven sold them relatively quickly. After less than 15 days, Steven successfully sold 20 S-rank Pokemon and negotiated almost the top price for each of these Pokemon. Even after deducting the Pokemon food, and most importantly, the items Alex gave to the 20 Pokemon to successfully improve their potential, the turnover was still more than 360 million Pokedollars. After Steven got his share, Alex made around 250 million Pokedollars in profit. He had over 300 million Pokedollars in total. During this time, Alex bought all the appropriate items for his first 3 Pokemon that he could find and which don't have an absolutely ridiculous price. But after spending 260 million Pokedollars on his 3 starter Pokemon and waiting sufficient time for his 3 starter Pokemon to absorb the items into their bodies, the first of his 3 Pokemon became an SS rank Pokemon. Crobat first became a shallow diamond Pokemon. Then Gardevoir, and Scizor not much later. After the last of his 3 Pokemon became a shallow diamond Pokemon, Alex stopped buying items for his 3 starter Pokemon. He ended up with less than 20 million Pokedollars left and spent a total of around 600 million Pokedollars to improve the potential of his 3 starter Pokemon. Even though he bought items at a bit overpriced price and not at their value. Alex would rather say he used 550 million Pokedollars of Pokemon items and spent over 600 million Pokedollars on them. He didn't want to waste several months at this time to just save 50 million Pokedollars. Alex couldn't be happier as now every one of his Pokemon except Ditto had extremely good potential. Dano and Seadra can evolve and, according to Alex, will definitely reach the SS rank. Now he just has to find a full-blood legendary item for Ditto and his team is no longer worse than Steven's in terms of potential. Shallow Diamond Pokemon as team members and 1 Diamond Pokemon is a ridiculously strong Pokemon team, but Alex believed his team would be no worse than Steven's in the future. Especially when he thought of Dano's perverse talent. Chapter 363, Alex was meditating when Steven walked into his room with a smile and several sheets of paper in his hand. "Here, I found it after you asked me." Alex stopped meditating and looked at Steven with an enthusiastic expression. He had asked Steven to look for stones, mega stones, that looked similar to what he had shown him. Especially stones, mega stones, that looked similar to the ones he had shown him, only several times smaller. Keystones. Alex recalls that keystones are much smaller than any megastones are, so that Steven should also look for stones that are smaller but similar to the stones that he showed Steven. He also gave Steven his 3 megastones so he can search for similar stones more easily. Alex took the several sheets of paper and quickly looked through them. He was amazed at how many stones Steven had found that looked alike. In the papers are not only the information, but there are also even photos of the different stones in these papers. Although 80% are not the stones Alex is looking for, he saw a small stone that looked exactly like a keystone in his memory. On the document, it shows that this stone belonged to a small business partner of Steven's company. Alex was pointing his finger at this stone as he said to Steven, "Steven, I must have this stone. Please, can you help me buy this stone? I'll give you the money." Steven showed a thoughtful expression. "Alex, I don't know why you're suddenly collecting those stones, but I have a feeling it's not a simple reason, like you love the way those stones look or some nonsense." Alex was about to say something, but Steven cut him off. "But don't worry. If you don't want to tell me, I won't question it and just help you." Alex looked at Steven as he said, "These stones are special. Although I don't know exactly how to use them, I believe these stones will be worth a fortune in the future. I'm only telling you this because I trust you, Steven, and I hope you can keep a secret. Please don't even tell your family about it." Steven unraveled a shocked expression upon hearing Alex's words. "Special? What do you imply?" Alex showed a serious expression as he said, "The stones have something to do with Xerneas, the life god. Megastones are the results of evolution stones being irradiated by the power of Xerneas or Yveltal, the legendary Pokemon of life and destruction, but Alex didn't want to tell Steven about Yveltal. Yveltal is similar to a death god in this world, and many consider him to be one of the most dangerous Pokemon that could wipe out mankind. That's why he didn't want to tell Steven about it. That would only worry Steven unnecessarily. Although he didn't tell the whole truth, his words were as much as he could tell Steven. If he explained what megastones are and how they work, it would be difficult to explain how he knew that. So he used this relatively imprecise, which only roughly explained the value of these stones. Steven's expression got even more surprised. What? Alex, are you kidding me? Alex said in a first expression, I met the life god during my training in the wild, and I saw several evolution stones become these stones after Xerneas touched them. It was only for a few seconds, and at first, I thought I was hallucinating. But after touching those stones, I knew I wasn't dreaming. Steven looked into Alex's eyes and slowly began to believe him. After calming down a bit, he said with an excited expression, Alex, you really are the luckiest person. How can you be so lucky? Or are you maybe blessed? Alex's eyes started to twitch as he said the word blessed. He wasn't sure if he was truly blessed or not. After all, he has a system and is a person not born in this world. But his starting point was rubbish, and his chi was also absolute rubbish compared to the MCs and the animes and series he had seen. Alex can see the status of a Pokemon. That's it. He's often wondered if this isn't one of the worst cheats of all time. Even a machine can do that in this world, what he can do. If he hadn't found some uses for it, he would be complaining about it every day. His cheat is a bit better than no cheat though. So he never thought about it, but after hearing the word blessed he couldn't help but think about how bad his cheat is as a blessed MC. Steven looked at Alex's unhappy expression and showed a puzzled expression. Why is his friend so unhappy when he compliments him? Alex stopped thinking about it and said, well, now that you know, I hope you can help me. I will help you in the future as well when I find out what these stones are for. Steven shook his head as he said, no, you don't have to. I didn't even know the stones were that special without you. But I'll still help you and buy as many of the stones for you as I can. Alex knew Steven would argue with him if he now says that he want to give him a cut, so that he didn't say anything. He will give Steven a keystone and megastone for his Metagross in the future when he finds them. No matter what Steven thinks now. Steven pointed to the picture of the keystone and then said with a serious expression, what is your maximum price for these stones in the picture? This person has 3 and I think you want all of them, right? Alex nodded and said with a heavy expression, buy it for whatever price. I don't think that person wants more money than an S-rank Pokemon costs for a stone that looks cool, right? Steven said in a serious tone, okay. Don't worry, Alex, I won't betray your trust. Alex started laughing. Haha, you bastard, what's with that serious expression? I already know that. Why are you still saying that? Aren't you embarrassed? Steven looked at Alex, who was laughing at him, and he said with a dissatisfied expression, I just got the impulse to deceive you and keep all those stones for myself. I'm wondering if I should follow that impulse. Alex said with a smile, but after that, you would lose your only friend. Steven also started to smile as he said, like you're my only friend. Not everyone is like you and only has one friend. Alex said with a fake, proud expression, not true, I have 2 friends. You and Maria. Girlfriends don't count. Naturally, girlfriends counts. It has friend in the name. How can it not count? Alex and Steven joked for several minutes before Steven left the room to buy those 3 keystones. He has a better relationship with the owner of the stones, so he, therefore, carries out the negotiation instead of Alex. Chapter 364, One day later. Steven enters Alex's room with 3 keystones in his hand and a slight smile on his face. Alex looked at these 3 stones and felt that these stones were 99% keystones. They just looked too similar to the stones from the game and his megastones. Steven gave the 3 stones to Alex as he said, I managed to buy these 3 stones for 5 million Poke Dollars. It's not a fair price, but what can I do if he doesn't want to sell these stones in the first place? Only with such a high price could I buy it. Alex revealed a smile as he said, "It doesn't matter. Those 3 stones are probably worth a lot more." Stephen showed a sharp expression on his face. Did you figure out what those stones do? Alex lied with a serious expression, "No. Wouldn't you rather give those stones to a professor? I'm sure it'll be easier to find out that way what these stones do. But it is also riskier. I won't give or show these stones to anyone as long as I still have the chance to find out for myself. If this professor passes on the information, the losses aren't worth the gain." Stephen said with a thoughtful expression, You want to collect as many of these stones as possible first, right?" Alex nodded with a serious expression. Stephen said, "I'll also. The owner of those 3 stones also told me where to find more of those stones." Alex said with a doubtful expression, "Why would he give you that information?" Stephen said with a smile, "That's factored into the 5 million price tag. Also, these stones are not in a non-hazardous area, so these stones are not easy to come by without a strong trainer." Alex asked where, and Stephen said Meteor Falls. Meteor Falls is a location in Hoenn. It is a large cave west of Fall Arbor Town with a waterfall inside. In Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Meteor Falls is one of the ancestral homes of the Draconid people. Alex said with a serious expression, "Isn't that where Meteor Village is?" The Meteor Village is a village located within Meteor Falls and home to the Draconid people. Draconid people in this world are not to be underestimated and are extremely strong. Although the number of Draconid people is very small, the strength of each Draconid trainer is quite powerful. Although he knew a bit about the Draconid people from the games, he didn't know how much applied to the games in this world. Stephen nodded as he said, "Yes, he also told me these stones can only be found deep within the Meteor Falls cave." Alex remembered Meteor Falls from the Pokemon games. Unfortunately, it didn't help Alex much. The size of this cave is many times larger than in the games and also many times more dangerous. Especially if you go deep into this cave, you will find a lot of powerful Pokemon. Alex looked at Stephen. "I'll go to Meteor Falls later today and see if I can find anything interesting." Stephen looked at Alex as he replied, "Good luck. Be careful and don't risk your life for a few stones." Alex said with a smile, says the stone collector. Stephen talks to Alex for a few more minutes before he leaves Alex's room. Alex knew that going deep into the Meteor Falls cave isn't completely safe, but he felt it wasn't extremely difficult and he was strong enough to handle almost any crisis. In an emergency, he could even run to the Meteor Village. Though he wasn't sure how those locals would treat him if he did that and lured a strong Pokemon there. That's why it's only an emergency option. Alex stored his food, water, and camping gear in his TRH device. He then teleports to Fall Arbor Town with Gardevoir's help. Gardevoir has been to this town several times when Alex bought and sold Pokemon in the black market. He then took 12 different sized necklaces out of his TRH device. These 12 necklaces were specially made to fit his 11 Pokemon and could easily hold a hold item. There was also a necklace for Alex so that he could use his keystone at any time. He named these necklaces so because they look like bizarre necklaces and are attached to the Pokemon's neck. Ditto's necklace was a bit difficult to make because Ditto often changes his height. But after Alex found a necklace that could stretch many times over, Ditto found a matching necklace. Alex entered a small forest near Fall Arbor Town and he said, "Crobat, Gardevoir, let me know if there's a Pokemon or person around that can see what's happening here." Of course, he didn't want to run tests with the Mega Stones when there was a person or Pokemon nearby. Alex had 4 Pokemon that he knew could Mega Evolution. Scizor, Gardevoir, Blaziken, and Banette. He might be able to do a Mega Evolution on his other Pokemon too, but he only knew of these 4 Pokemon that it was 100% possible. He started with Crobat by giving one of his 3 Mega Stones to Crobat. After doing that, he wondered if he needed to do anything else. He thought with a thoughtful expression, "What now? F***CK, I have no idea how Mega Evolution works and how to do it. I hope I don't have to do something stupid like yell Mega Evolve or I'll die in embarrassment. Wait! He suppressed his embarrassment and shouted Mega Evolve while touching his keystone. Nothing happened. Crobat eyed Alex as if he didn't comprehend what just happened. Then he showed, to Alex, an expression that looked like he was looking at a stupid kid doing something stupid. Alex wished at times like this that he couldn't read the emotion on Crobat's face so well. Even the other Pokemon looked at Alex with slightly confused expressions, and some even turned away their eyes from Alex. Only Banette and Dano showed that they found Alex's action cool. When Alex saw that even Blaziken think it was embarrassing, he felt two new different emotions. He was glad that Blaziken was so big now that she didn't think it was cool anymore, but he was also extremely sad that she probably saw him as an embarrassing father. Alex's face blushed a little as he thought, "Ah, I want to die. At least Banette and Dano don't find it embarrassing. I hope that only these words are really necessary to perform a Mega Evolution." He switched a Megastone from Crobat's necklace and repeated the same action again. Chapter 365. After more than 30 minutes, Alex realized that none of his 3 Megastones are suitable for his Pokemon. Although there may be another explanation for this. It could be that he did something else wrong and therefore cannot successfully Mega Evolve his Pokemon. But he considers the possibility to be less likely. Alex doesn't lose anything by doing these tests except that his Pokemon look at Alex with strange eyes afterward. He also didn't explain his Pokemon anything, so it was understandable that his Pokemon found his action weird. Alex wants to wait to explain all of his Pokemon when he successfully performed one Mega Evolution. He ignored his Pokemon stares and started walking toward Meteor Falls. Meteor Falls is a cave that is in many parts relatively unexplored and not a safe place for the average trainer. Even for Alex, who is a relatively strong elite trainer, this cave is not without danger. After 15 minutes, Alex was in front of one of the several entrances to Meteor Falls. The weak Pokemons under the elite rank immediately run away as soon as they see Alex and his team. Even arrogant and aggressive Pokemon wouldn't attack Alex at such a ridiculous disadvantage in level and quantity. As always, Alex had bought a map specifically for Meteor Falls for 500,000 Pokedollars. It was the most accurate map he could find, and although expensive, there was a lot of important information on the map. This map also reminded Alex of the map Giovanni had given him. He was wondering if this map belonged to Giovanni's sale business or if many map makers use a similar structure. This map is divided into different parts and Alex can see at a glance which sections are dangerous for him. Also, the exact location of Meteor Village is easily visible. That's why Alex was willing to pay such a high price for this map. He was thinking about going to Area 25 hashtag to catch some Bagon, but decided against it after a few moments of thinking. Alex wouldn't make an awful lot of money even if he did that. Also, the chance of dying isn't small. He doesn't want to risk his life to win some money amount that is not even that much for him. Alex painfully remembers the Hypno incident and doesn't want to be so close to dying again. He thought, if I'm going to risk my life, it should be something where it's worth the risk or the chances of me actually dying are ridiculously small. Alex's goals are Megastones and Keystones. Only these are worth the risk of going deeper into the cave. After he was deep enough in the cave for his Pokemon, Alex took out the Megastones and Keystones he had and placed them in front of Bastiodon. Alex asked with a serious expression, "I call these types of stones, Mega, and Keystones. Bastiodon, can you detect stones similar to these?" Bastiodon replied with Gardevoir's help, "Stray father. I don't know how to tell these stones apart from other stones. They don't feel like anything special to me." Alex thought for a few moments before saying, "What about the shape and size? Can you tell them separated like that?" Bastiodon nodded, "Yes, that should be possible. I will then only inform you of stones that have a very similar shape and size. Although there will be other stones that have a similar shape and size, so..." Alex understood what Bastiodon meant and he said with a smile, "It's okay if not all the stones are Mega and Keystones. It's good enough. I'm content if I don't have to check every stone." Bastiodon then said, "Besides, father, I'll probably use up a lot of energy searching for stones for a long time, so I probably can't contribute much to the fights. As a rock type, Bastiodon has a much better perception on the ground than other Pokemon. But using this ability is not effortless and is physically demanding, so it was understandable that Bastiodon would get tired if he used it for a very long time. Alex nodded with a smile as he pets Bastiodon's head. Bastiodon displayed a happy expression for a second, but as if remembering something, he began to look slightly bitter as he said, "Father, I'm not a child anymore." After that, he went out of the pet reach of Alex. Bastiodon's eyes showed a slightly sad expression as he did so. Alex understood Bastiodon better than Bastiodon himself, and he also recognized Bastiodon's expression. Cute, thought Alex as he started chasing after Bastiodon. He got back in pet range and started petting Bastiodon again. Bastiodon again showed a happy expression for a second before he remembered. He started running faster out of Alex's pet range this time. Alex suppressed his compulsion to continue to pursue and pet Bastiodon. Chapter 366, Alex and his Pokemon went deeper into the cave as they collected stones at the same time. Unfortunately, every stone Bastiodon found wasn't a Mega or Keystone. Although Bastiodon only looks for stones that were the same shape and size as a Mega or Keystone, there were still many stones of similar shape and size in this cave. Alex looked at the map and saw that he was about to enter an orange area. He started encountering some elite-level Pokemon. However, Alex and his team were already strong enough to defeat several low-elite Pokemon without any problems. Bastiodon found another stone again, but this time, Alex smiled when he saw the stone. That was a Megastone. Alex was extremely happy to finally find another Megastone, and he hoped that it was a Megastone for one of his Pokemon. He and his Pokemon go further and further into the cave but couldn't find another Mega or Keystone. Alex started to show a serious expression as he and his Pokemon entered a red area. A red area is not always necessarily more dangerous than an orange area, but is often not fully explored, or the red area is explored but many times more dangerous than an orange area. Alex personally prefers the explored red area to the unknown red area, even if it has stronger Pokemon on average. Alex encountered the Solrock and thought it was a good chance to train his Pokemon a bit. He had Gardevoir fight this Solrock, and to make it a bit harder, he had Gardevoir fight this Solrock without his help. Alex was a little surprised, but Gardevoir defeated this Pokemon very quickly and without any issues. In this fight, Gardevoir completely outsmarted Solrock and she barely lost any HP. Of course, one reason why Gardevoir had won so easily is that Pokemon in the wild have a weaker body than Pokemon from trainers have on average, and are therefore often weaker at the same level. Especially Alex's Pokemon are physically extremely trained and even better than Pokemon from other trainers. Mostly. Gardevoir was also level 52, but compared to Solrock, she was more of a level 53 or 54 Pokemon. Alex and his team went deeper and deeper into the cave. He started finding more and more keys and Megastones, and he couldn't help but grin. Although he also encountered many low and mid-level elite Pokemon, these weren't much of a problem with his team. Even when he faced a level 54 Crobat, was this Pokemon easily defeated in a group attack. However, Alex stopped smiling when he suddenly saw a new Pokemon running in his direction. Alex quickly said Gardevoir. Gardevoir immediately understood what Alex wanted from her, and she immediately started preparing, teleport. The rest of Alex's Pokemon understood what Alex wanted to do too and went as close to Gardevoir as possible. Druddigon was only a few meters away from Alex and his Pokemon when he could almost use Outrage. Alex said in a calm tone, "All use Protect." All of Alex's Pokemon except Gardevoir use Protect and managed to block Druddigon's attack. But the attack still destroyed more than half of the Protect shields before this attack was blocked. Alex could feel the power of this move. He was sure that each of his Pokemon would get one-shotted from this move. Gardevoir uses Teleport and teleports everyone to the forest where Alex and his Pokemon did the Mega Evolution test. F***CK. That was way too close. Alex didn't want to go to that area again after encountering such a powerful and aggressive Pokemon. Especially with his current strength. He plans to go back to this area when most of his Pokemon are high elite Pokemon. However, Alex was still satisfied with his trip. He found 2 Keystones and 4 Evolve Stones. Alex's Pokemon looked at Alex, who was looking at those weird stones again and couldn't help but show a worried expression. They were concerned that their trainer would run those weird tests again after finding new stones. Alex saw those worried looks and he thought to himself, hopefully it works out this time or I'll be treated like a maniac in the future. He started doing the Mega Evolution test again. When he gave one of the new Mega Stones to Scizor and he touched his Keystone, Alex felt a strange feeling in his body. Alex had the feeling that this time it would work 100%. He suppressed his embarrassment and shouted Mega Evolve while touching his Keystone. After that, he felt like he and Scizor became one creature. He could understand Scizor better than he ever could at that moment. This moment only lasted 1 second and then Scizor started to evolve into Mega Scizor. Alex's other Pokemon all showed shocked expressions upon seeing this. Alex in comparison showed a happy and excited expression. Especially after seeing the info from Scizor. Chapter 367, several months later. Alex woke up and slowly moves his hand away from the other side of the bed. Maria, who was under Alex's arm, was still asleep after Alex slipped softly his arm under Maria's head. He slowly walked out of the bedroom and made his way to the bathroom. When Alex started to shower, he suddenly heard the bathroom door being opened. Maria enters the bathroom without saying a word. After that, she instantly took off her clothes and entered the shower where Alex greeted her with a smile. Alex said with a smile, "Don't you know how dangerous it is to be naked in front of a man?" Maria rolled her eyes as she said, "Oh, really? Then it's a good thing I don't see a man here." Alex's expression stiffened a bit and he was speechless for a few seconds. Then started to smile big. He said, "Wow, that was nasty, but I like it." Alex wasn't insecure about his new body and he didn't believe Mary's words were true. Especially because he had already entered a sauna when he wanted to relax in a hotel and what he saw proved that Maria was talking nonsense. Maria flashed a playful look as she walked closer to Alex and whispered in his ear, "I'm really mean to you, but what are you going to do about it?" After 40 minutes, Maria and Alex left the bathroom. At the same time, they greet all Pokemon that have already woken up. Alex looked at the status of his Pokemon like every morning. Between level 55 and level 59, all Pokemon are called High Elite Pokemon. Now Alex has 6 High Elite Pokemon and these Pokemon are only 5 level ups away from becoming champion level Pokemon. Alex had the feeling that these 5 levels would take a particularly long time. He remembered how many strong gym leaders' Pokemon stayed long in those 5 levels. For example, Koga only had 2 level 60 Pokemon and both had a shallow diamond. The rest of Koga's main team is between levels 56 and 59. Koga has been a trainer for a relatively long time and his training method shouldn't be bad, but his Pokemon are still at this level. Although Alex believed that almost no other trainer trained their Pokemon as much and effectively as he trained his Pokemon, Koga shouldn't be many times worse than him. Alex's amount of money spent on his Pokemon is completely ridiculous and his training time is just as ridiculous. Even Steven uses less money at the same amount of time as Alex on his Pokemon. Luckily, all Pokemon except Ditto are now on the SS rank and shouldn't take years to reach level 60. Alex was particularly happy that his 2 newest family members are now strong enough to help in fights. Kingdra and Zweilous have both evolved and are already on the same level as Ditto. There wasn't much Alex could do about Ditto's slow leveling. Even after spending a lot of money to buy a lot of items for Ditto. He made a lot of money in those several months with Steven, even though he started selling fewer S-rank Pokemon when the market had too many S-rank Pokemon in stock. Alex is still making good money, just slower than before. He now had 200 million Poke Dollars left, even though he had already spent more than 250 million Poke Dollars on Ditto's items in the past few months. Alex, who had to spend so much money to get Ditto to deep gold potential, felt that Ditto's born potential was really terrible. He wasn't even sure if Ditto could become a shallow diamond with many SS rank items. The jump from deep gold to shallow diamond is enormous, and Alex felt that even with 1 billion poke dollar worth of items, Ditto couldn't reach the shallow diamond potential. If each item becomes less effective after the next item, it's almost the main reason why these costs are becoming more and more ridiculous for Ditto, who needs many items. Alex was sitting with Maria as he said, "Are you ready for tomorrow? Or are you nervous?" Maria smiled slightly as she said, "Why should I be nervous? I'm not the person who needs to win against Marco and Janine in Giovanni's test." Alex had an emotionless expression on his face, but he was a bit nervous about the test Giovanni had prepared for his participants. Today was the last day of the one-year preparation time, and also the day when Giovanni will explain the test in detail. Chapter 368. Alex looked at Maria with a serious expression as he said, "Have you informed Daniel and Elise?" Maria also replied with a serious expression, "Yes, the two should arrive at this hotel today." Alex flashed a smile upon hearing this. "Good, how's the progress on these two?" Maria said in a slightly unhappy tone, "After having to babysit because you were too lazy, the improvement was still relatively reasonable and quick, even though I didn't spend a lot of time helping them both. Fortunately, they are both very talented and don't need much help." Alex didn't say anything when he heard those words. He could understand why Maria is so mad at him. He gave her the task of taking care of his two subordinates and then disappeared for several months. Alex quickly tried to change the subject. "Good. BTW, do you have any idea how strong those two are now?" Maria just rolled her eyes when she heard this bad attempt. After that, she said, "Unbelievable." Without saying another word, she pulled a sheet of paper out of her TRH device. Alex took the piece of paper and ignored Maria's glance. Daniel. A-rank Beedrill at level 45. S-rank Butterfree at level 49. S-rank Beedrill at level 52. S-rank Sizer at level 48. S-rank Heracross at level 46. S-rank Drapion at level 45. Elise. S-rank Fiero at level 48. S-rank Gyarados at level 46. A-rank Xatu at level 43. S-rank Crobat at level 45. Maria. SS-rank Arbok at level 54. S-rank Sandslash at level 50. S-rank Pidgeot at level 52. S-rank Nidoqueen at level 50. SS-rank Garchomp at level 49. S-rank Alakazam at level 43. Alex, looking at the list, showed a satisfied expression. The strength of his three subordinates really isn't bad, and he has predicted them to be about that strength by now. Elise's strength was at its worst, but that was to be expected as she became a trainer at the latest. In addition, the strength of her Pokemon was still not bad and even relatively good. Alex was a bit surprised that Daniel already had a level 52 Pokemon. In his experience, after level 49, Deep Gold Pokemon don't have the maximum level speed anymore and need to improve their potential, or they start leveling up more slowly. Not leveling up with the fastest speed doesn't mean that you level up slowly in general, but that you level up slower and slower after each level. That's why the potential of a Pokemon doesn't affect the level up speed as long as man hasn't reached a certain level. However, as soon as you have reached this level, this Pokemon starts to level up more and more slowly. Alex already knew the strength of Maria's team through his system, so he wasn't surprised that her team was so strong. Especially Arbok at level 54 is not weak and can keep up with Alex's Pokemon team. Alex looked at Maria and said with a smile, "I felt like I'd be soon the Hoenns Team Rocket executive." Maria turned away her eyes from Alex's bad joke and said, "Enough with the nonsense. How good do you think your chances really are?" Alex gave a serious expression. "It depends if you've figured out how strong the competitors are. Otherwise, it's hard to give an accurate assessment." Maria said in an emotionless tone, "I dunno. I didn't find anything." Alex said in a slightly displeased tone, "What about the money I gave you? Wasn't that used to find out more?" Maria replied with a dissatisfied tone too, "Are you stupid? Do you think that with so little money you can find out such important information? Did you forget that the background of the two is much deeper than yours? I have only useless information for this money, like that every Pokemon from Marco is at least on the mid-elite rank. Least on the mid-elite rank? What kind of vague nonsense is this? After a couple of seconds, Alex said, well, that's not really your fault. What can you do if our influence is really bad compared to Marco and Janine? Alex talks a bit more with Maria before he starts meditating again. Not only did Alex's Pokemon get stronger these months, but so did Alex. His psychic strength can now be used faster and more effectively. He also had trained 3 psychic skills and neglected his other skills for them. 2 old and 1 new. The first is telekinesis, which he had been training all along. After several months, his energy consumption, range, speed, and maximum weight improved through telekinesis. He also had one of his weapons upgraded to make telekinesis even more effective. The weapon is a set of thick needles that allow you to add poison into them and, like a syringe, to immediately eject this poison from the needle head as soon as Alex applies a little pressure to the end of the needles. Although Alex likes to call these weapons dense needles and they look so similar, they had more similarities to syringes than needles. Alex's favorite weapon to use with his telekinesis ability. He bought extremely expensive material and had a new and improved set of thick needles made. The blacksmith even gave his creation a name that Alex adopted. Poison syringe, an extremely deadly weapon against any human. His second skill was energy shield, and didn't change anything except that he can now block more attacks or a stronger attack. Alex learned to use his psychic energy better and to save a bit on consumption. He could now completely block a master rank attack from Crobat using all of his psychic energy. Blocking an attack from a level 55 Pokemon was extremely useful, even though he could only do it once and the energy consumption was ridiculously bad. Chapter 369, Covering, is the third and the latest technique Alex has learned in these months. Covering is a technique Alex learned after buying a book on it for 2 million Pokedollars. When using this skill, it turns psychic energy into a substance that amplifies everything it touches. These exact enhancements are user selectable, and the strength of these enhancements depends on the mastery of that skill and the amount of psychic energy used. However, Alex can only use this technique on himself or objects that he is constantly touching. He can make a wooden stick as hard as an iron staff by using covering. But as soon as he lets go of that wooden stick, it will stop being as hard as an iron staff. Covering is also a skill that is an increased consumption type, and the longer this skill is used, the greater the consumption of psychic energy is. Alex has done many tests with this skill and also tested the different enhancements he can give himself and his body parts. The simple and energy-effective enhancement is the hardness enhancement, which improves the hardness of a body part or object. In the beginning, Alex had a lot of problems in being able to move his body flexibly after making his body as hard as stone, but after he left a few places on his body softer and didn't improve them, this problem almost went away. Alex can now make his body almost entirely as hard as steel with unrestricted movement, with his now better mastery. This enhancement is extremely useful against all types of normal weapons and is more acceptable in energy consumption than energy shield when it needs to be used for more than one instant. But, against Pokemon attack, this enhancement was very mediocre and not as effective as Alex had hoped. After just a few tests, Alex quickly realized that energy shield is many times more efficient in terms of energy consumption and security against Pokemon attacks. Another enhancement option with covering was accelerate. Accelerate, as the name suggests, increases the speed of movement. Alex has to do the movement himself, and this enhancement only speeds up the basic movement. He tests this by augmenting his arm with accelerate and then performing a punch which causes that punch to be many times faster than humans are capable of. Alex's world humans. Unfortunately, Alex broke several bones at the same time during this test. Especially his shoulder was completely useless after this one hit. Fortunately, Gardevoir was able to heal Alex, allowing him to do even more tests with this enhancement. Alex was glad at that moment that this body was a lot tougher than the body from his old world, or that this test could have ended worse than a few broken bones. After several tests, Alex finds out that by distributing the psychic energy, the burden on the whole body can be avoided. He uses about 50% of the psychic energy on his hand and forearm, about 30% of the psychic energy on his upper arm and shoulder, and the rest distributed throughout his body. That was the most effective distribution without straining his body. Of course, when using accelerate on a different part of the body, such as the legs, a completely different distribution must be used. Covering is a very complicated technique, and Alex had only learned these two enhancements so far. This skill is almost too difficult for a Tier 3 psychic, and Alex is only trying to learn it because it is extremely useful. Especially when Alex comes into close combat, this skill is extremely useful and much better than telekinesis in terms of energy consumption. As Alex meditated, he saw Daniel come into the room with Maria. Daniel gave Alex an emotionless look as he said, "Boss, you called me?" With an undertone of, "Why are you calling me now?" Alex suppressed his unhappy feelings and he said with a smile, "It's time. The test will start tomorrow that will decide who will be the boss of the Hoenn department of Team Rocket. I only have 2 other opponents and the chance of winning this position is not bad." He looked at Daniel as he said, "If you want to have lots of Pokemon items and money in the future to make you and your Pokemon stronger, I would recommend that you give it your all in this test." Alex then displays an unsympathetic and cruel look. "You are one of the 3 subordinates I have chosen and I expect no mistakes." After throwing out the reward, he simultaneously showed a stick. Alex doesn't expect Daniel to give up his own interests for him, but he does expect him to use his head at least a bit to understand what he can gain by being loyal to him and what he loses if he ceases to do so. Daniel continued to show an unemotional expression as he said, "Don't worry, boss, I'll fulfill your expectation." Alex gave a fake smile as he said, "That's good to hear. Then come and let's train together. I can show you some training tricks that I stole from gym leaders and Elite Four members." That was a complete lie, but Alex believed that his Pokemon training is many times more effective than Daniel's and that training with Alex's Pokemon can help Daniel and his Pokemon a lot. He only said gym leaders and Elite Four members so as not to hurt Daniel's pride and make it easy for him to steal these training exercises. Alex wasn't afraid that this would make Daniel stronger than him, and he would even be happy if Daniel got even stronger than he is now. It would help him a lot if Daniel had a strength similar to that of the average gym leader. Especially in Hoenn. The chance of treachery is very slim as long as he's much stronger than Daniel and he's giving Daniel enough benefits. When we went to the private training room of this hotel and wanted to train their Pokemon, Alex looked at the information from Daniel's Pokemon. Oh, that little liar. Chapter 370, Daniel's strongest Beedrill was not only 1 level higher than stated but also an SS rank Pokemon with a shallow diamond potential. Alex wasn't surprised that this Beedrill could reach the shallow diamond potential, considering this Beedrill is a born S rank Pokemon. If a Pokemon is born with a shallow gold or gold potential, it's relatively easy to achieve shallow diamond potential with enough training and money. With Alex's support, it's not difficult for Daniel to find good paying missions and collect enough money. Alex half expected that Daniel's level 52 Pokemon might not be an S-rank Pokemon as he that level from that Beedrill saw. That's probably why Daniel entered level 52 and not its real level. It's easier to hide like this. Pretty smart. If there was a difference in level, nobody would notice it unless Alex tested it with a machine. And even if Alex later had it tested with a machine, Daniel can say that it just leveled up and that he didn't put in the wrong data on purpose. Alex sat down next to Daniel as he said with a smile, "I noticed that one of your Pokemon levels up particularly fast this time." Daniel just gave Alex an emotionless look as he replied, "What do you mean?" Alex showed a harmless smile as he said, "Nothing. I'm just a bit of an expert at level up speed, and I noticed that one Pokemon from your team is particularly weird, for its potential." Daniel's emotionless expression collapsed upon hearing this and he looked at Alex with wary eyes. He started to show panic in his eyes as he saw that Alex take a step closer to him. Alex continued to smile harmlessly as he said, "You don't have to be scared. If I wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead." Daniel calmed down a bit and said in a dry tone, "What do you want?" Alex said with a casual expression, "Why do you think I want anything from you?" I was just saying that I suspect you lied about the potential of one of your Pokemon and lied to me about it. That's not an unforgivable mistake, but... Then he showed a serious expression. I want to hear the truth first. Daniel felt as if he was standing in front of a cliff that could lead to his death if he took one wrong step. The completely indifferent and emotionless look that Alex showed him only reinforced this feeling. Daniel said with a serious expression, I really lied about the information on one of my Pokemon. Beedrill is not only level 53 but has an SS rank potential. Alex showed a satisfied expression upon hearing this. Very good. You didn't start to justify yourself, you're just telling the whole truth. He flashed a faded smile as he said, I forgive you. Alex then said with a casual expression, it makes sense that you're scared of telling someone stronger than you that you have an SS rank Pokemon. But it's also a bit stupid of you. Alex showed a slightly disappointed expression. Have you forgotten what I said to you when we first met you? Your worth is higher than several S-rank Pokemon and not so easily replaceable for me. I thought you understood me a bit better now. Daniel's eyes started to calm down again as he said, I wasn't sure if the same applies to an SS rank Pokemon. Alex revealed a smile as he said, what am I supposed to do with a level 53 SS rank Pokemon? Even if I kill you and try to steal this Pokemon, do you think it will listen to me? Pokemon above level 39 are extremely difficult to control, and the only possible effective way to control it is if that Pokemon belongs to this trainer from an early level. Alex then said in a calm tone, or did you think I wanted your Beedrill's corpse? Daniel didn't say anything for a moment. Alex shows a disappointed expression as he says, that's so stupid. You do realize that a corpse from an SS rank mid-elite Beedrill is worth less than multiple S-rank Pokemon below the elite rank, right? Daniel, feeling that his intellect had been insulted, said, I just thought that the SS rank is just too big of a temptation. But now that you point it out, my actions seem really stupid. Alex could understand why Daniel was so scared. An SS rank Pokemon is no small temptation to most trainers, and there are quite a few crazy people who would even try to capture and control it at level 53. Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. Alex then showed his emotionless and cold eyes again as he said, but this is the last chance I'm giving you. Don't lie to me. Daniel looked at Alex with a serious expression as he said, yes, boss. Maria interrupted the conversation by saying, Elise, it's here. After that she left the room without a word to receive Elise. After several seconds she can go back into the training room with Elise. Alex looked at the information on Elise's Pokemon and found that everything about them was true. He walked in front of Elise and said with a warm smile, Are you ready? Elise flashed a charming smile as she said, For you always, boss. Maria, who was standing behind Elise, looked at her with an ice-cold look. She just barely managed not to clench her hands and fists and beat Elise to the ground. She felt personally offended that this B*TCH dared to flirt with her boyfriend before her. Alex recognized Maria's look immediately and he started showing a cheerful smile when he saw that deadly look from Maria. That's so cute. Alex's perception of cute is very bizarre. In 3 days I will be uploading regularly again. Chapter 371, in an underground base in Saffron City, there was a particularly luxurious room. There were several very expensive pieces of jewelry on the wall, and even the furniture in this room was made with only the finest wood and enriched with many beautiful gemstones. In addition, the huge room had many high-quality electrical devices and even a huge TV on the wall, which worked without any problems even in this below-ground base. 2 young men and a young woman are sitting in this large, luxurious room. The first young man was very tall for his age and almost 2 meters tall, even though he was under 18 years old. He was not only tall but also relatively wide. He had a big belly, broad shoulders, and very muscular arms that didn't match his face at all. The face of this man could almost perfectly be described with the words baby face. The second young man had short black hair and a muscular body. He almost looked like a perfect handsome man if he didn't have those eagle-like eyes that made him look very dangerous. But even with those dangerous-looking eyes, this young man was very popular among the opposite sex. These two young men were named Marco and Leroy. The woman in this room was a pale young woman with purple eyes and purplish hair, the latter being tied by a yellow ribbon. She wears a scarf, a belt, and white socks that were similar to the gym leader Koga. Janine was the name of this woman, and she sits across from Marco and Leroy. Marco looked at Janine with a slight smile as he said, "I'm glad you could come. Can I get you something to drink?" Janine just looked at Marco emotionlessly as she said, "No. Now, don't waste my time and tell me what you want." Marco's eagle-like eyes gazed at Janine with a serious look as he said, "I heard you had trouble finding good subordinates." Janine's face turned cold when she heard Marco's question. "Do you want to die?" Marco answered in a calm tone, "No, and I don't think you can change this." The room went deadly silent for a few seconds and neither of them said a word. Marco suddenly started saying, "I'm going to offer you a deal." Janine showed a suspicious expression as she said, "A deal? Is that a joke?" Marco showed a serious expression as he replied, "Wait till you hear what I'm offering before you make fun of it." He glimpsed at Janine's eyes as he said, "I'll help you win the test and win the position in Hoenn." Janine showed a surprised expression as she said, "What? That's a lie. Why would you do that? What do you gain from it?" Marco started to smile as he replied, "Happiness? Satisfaction? Pleasure? These are the emotions I would feel if you won this test instead of Alex." Janine showed a confused expression. She couldn't understand why Marco would be so happy if Alex didn't win this test. She asks with a confused expression, "Is it for revenge? Has Alex done anything bad to you?" Marco said with a careless expression, "No. Me and Alex don't have any hatred." Janine got even more confused than she was before. What? "But," Marco said with an annoyed expression, "but that doesn't change the fact that I despise Alex's talent, and it wouldn't give me great pleasure to see him fall to the ground and crawl onto the ground like a worm." He looked at Janine with almost maddening eyes as he said, "I've gathered so much information from that bastard, and the more I found out the stronger this feeling got." Marco then started to show an expression of anger as he said, almost screaming, "This bastard is a one-of-a-kind prodigy and comparable if not better to Giovanni in terms of talent. He hasn't even been a trainer for a year and a half and his Pokemon have already a better average than my Pokemon have. I've been a trainer for 4 years. I train every day as much as I can with my Pokemon. I was born into a rich family. I had the help of Team Rocket from the very beginning. And I am still so much worse than an orphan who has been a trainer for less than 1.5 years. Why? Why am I so much worse? Just because my talent as a trainer is worse? Only because of that?" After only Marco's screams could be heard in this room became completely silent again. Nobody said a word. Marco started to calm down a bit after saying that. He said in an almost soft tone, "I hate that monster named Alex. You know, there was a time when I thought I was a talented trainer." Marco looked at Janine as he said, "You, me, and even your father are just normal geniuses. And I want to bring this extraordinary genius down. I don't care if he later becomes many times stronger than me. As long as I can trip this monster once, I'm satisfied." Janine looked at Marco with a calm expression as she said, "You're jealous." Marco didn't get angry upon hearing this and he just said with a smile, "Yes, I'm jealous. Like a kid who doesn't get their favorite toy. But, I don't care. I don't care if it's just an emotional reaction and my behavior is childish." He looked at Janine with a smile as he said, "You're pretty lucky. Even if you just get the help of a jealous kid." Janine and Marco talked for a few more minutes before Janine left the room with an apathetic expression. Leroy, who hadn't said anything the whole time, started to sit down next to Marco as he said softly, "Okay, she's gone." Marco showed an unemotional expression when he said, "Good." Leroy then asked with a smile, "That was a lie, wasn't it?" Marco said in a soft tone, "Depends on what you mean. If you mean when I said that I'm going to help her win the test, then yeah, that's a lie. But you things I said about Alex are pretty much true." Leroy showed a surprised expression upon hearing this. Marco revealed a smile when he saw that. "What are you so surprised about?" I'm only human too. It's not easy not to feel anything when you're so much worse than others even though you work so hard and long. After a short break he continues, but that's exactly why Janine believed my lie. Leroy said in an approving tone, because your jealousy really exists. Boss, your talent for lying is really impressive. Marco showed an annoyed expression when he heard that. He looked coldly at Leroy with his eagle-like eyes. Shut up. Chapter 372, Saffron City is a sprawling metropolis in the Kanto region. It lies in between Celadon City, Vermilion City, Lavender Town, and Cerulean City. It is home to Sabrina, the city's gym leader. It is the largest and one of the busiest cities in Kanto, being famous even in other regions. It is the 10th most populous city in the Pokemon world and one of the only cities in Kanto. In this big city, Alex, Maria, Daniel, and Elise are sitting in a waiting room. Sylph Company has 3 different entrances or exits. 2 secret and 1 normal. Alex and his 3 subordinates enter this building through one of the 2 secret entrances. Now they wait in a waiting room for Giovanni to call them. As they were waiting, Marco abruptly entered the room with 3 of his subordinates. Alex looked at Marco and his 3 subordinates for a few seconds before looking elsewhere. Marco does this himself for Alex and his 3 subordinates as he watches them for a few seconds. But he shows a little smile during this process. Why is that bastard smiling, thought Alex when he noticed that. He didn't know why, but for him seemed this smile like Marco found something amusing about him. Maybe, I'm also a bit too sensitive and that smile has nothing to do with me. Anyway, there's no point getting irate about it now, thought Alex when he stopped thinking about it. After a few minutes, Janine came into the waiting room. But unlike Alex and Marco, she only had 1 subordinate. Although Janine only had 1 subordinate, Alex didn't underestimate her and her subordinate. Alex was sure that Janine could easily find 2 other subordinates at the elite level if she wanted, but that she just doesn't want weak subordinates. He could understand that a little bit. If you can't find a subordinate that has at least 1 Pokemon at level 50, is that subordinate not much help in this test? Even on Alex's team, Elise is pretty much useless and Alex only put her on his team to gain experience and because he wants to use her later in Hoenn. Judging by Elise's Pokemon team strength alone, she is not very useful in Alex's team. Her whole team together is even weaker than Ditto. Alex's weakest Pokemon. Though Alex saw Elise as an investment that would come in handy later in Hoenn, so that her strength is not particularly important now. Her potential was more important to Alex. Because of the under 18-year limit, it is almost impossible that one of the subordinates is even remotely as strong as Alex, Marco, or Janine. But Alex thought it possible that they had similar strengths to Daniel or even Maria at best. ORM unexpectedly came into the room along with 2 of his Pokemon. Alex showed a slightly surprised expression when he saw another member of the 3 Beasts. ORM is the only member of the 3 Beasts who was actually loyal to Giovanni and the only member Alex barely remembers. Alex thought with a thoughtful expression, I wonder if Car's betrayal happened in this world too. He then looked closely at the muscular man. ORM is a very large, muscular man, who has short, slicked-down black hair. He wears a black shirt and an open black outline jacket that has the Team Rocket logo etched onto his left chest part. He also wears gray pants and black boots. His head is large and squarish, with a high forehead. Notably, ORM's eyes are almost closed. He looked extremely weird to Alex. Alex stopped looking at ORM and he looked at the 2 Pokemon ORM followed. There was a shuckle hanging around ORM's neck and a Jumpluff flying behind ORM. Alex looked at these 2 Pokemon but he showed a relaxed expression. Although these 2 Pokemon aren't weak, Alex's Pokemon were stronger and he didn't need to be afraid of ORM's Pokemon team. I've come really far. I remember a year ago the Pokemon at this level seemed ridiculously strong to me. And now I only have this feeling for champion-level Pokemon. ORM said in a dry tone, your subordinates are waiting here and you 3, follow me. Alex, Marco, and Janine followed ORM without saying a word. These 3 are no weaker than ORM and see no reason to be particularly respectful toward him. After less than 3 minutes, the group arrived in front of a large door. ORM, who had led them there, said goodbye with the words, "I'll be going then." Alex hesitated for a second and knocked on the door they were standing in front of. Although he had met Giovanni before, Alex couldn't help but get a little nervous when he got to his door. After hearing the words, "Come in," Alex opened the door. Alex, Marco, and Janine entered the large office almost simultaneously and saw Giovanni sitting quietly on his chair, caring for his Persian. Alex looked at the information from Persian. Incredible. Giovanni's pet became a champion-level Pokemon. It seems that Giovanni had exercised his pet a bit. Chapter 373, Giovanni looked at the three entering the room as he said, "You really were an extraordinary generation." Although the words were very kind, Giovanni's expression and tone were neutral and almost indifferent. Alex, Marco, and Janine greeted and thanked Giovanni at the same time. Giovanni looked at the three with a calm expression, as he said, "It's time to find out which of the three is best suited to take over the Hoenn region." He said that in a tone like owning the whole Hoenn region is a foolproof thing and shouldn't be a problem for the winner. Alex knew that wasn't the case. Team Rocket will only provide financial support or let maybe a small number of Team Rocket members switch. This help is not bad but insufficient to control an entire region at least in the beginning years. Giovanni continued, "You should have read all the rules and I trust that you are all smart enough not to fool around during this test." Alex received a piece of paper on rules from Giovanni several months ago. It was just one piece of paper and only half was filled out. Most of the rules are relatively standard. 1. Do not kill any participant, team leader or his subordinate, or Pokemon of a participant. 2. Do not steal items or Pokemon from other participants. 3. Torture of any kind is forbidden. 4. But it also had some interesting rules. 7. Once the test has started, any competitor must not receive assistance from non-competitors. 8. If all Pokemon have been defeated by a team leader or the team leader has been caught, he is automatically eliminated from the test and is not allowed to intervene in this test anymore. Usually, this is completely unaccountable, and easy to find loopholes with so little text in a rulebook. However, Giovanni added an interesting rule to this rulebook. 15. Giovanni has the right to decide how to deal with any questionable rule decision or use of rule loopholes. This set of rules showed Alex again how clever Giovanni is. Giovanni didn't bother too much with the rules and just gave himself the power to punish every participant without really having to find a reason. Especially the words questionable rule decision are completely inaccurate and could allow Giovanni to punish every participant for complete nonsense. For example, Giovanni might say that if one competitor insults another competitor, that counts as breaking Rule 3. This is one of the many options Giovanni can use if he wants to. But what Alex thought was the smartest thing about Giovanni's rulebook is that Giovanni doesn't write down what the penalties are for each rule breaking. If the participants do not know what the penalties for each rule are, they will be particularly careful not to break even one rule. This rulebook is completely unfair to Alex and the other participants, but no one said anything to Giovanni when they got this rulebook a few months ago. That was a power play and Giovanni is now reminding the contestants of the rulebook again. Alex does not take offense at these words from Giovanni. He didn't even think Giovanni was doing anything wrong, and he even had more respect for Giovanni doing something like that. He probably wouldn't do it any other way in Giovanni's position. So why should he be mad about it? Marco and Janine also showed a calm expressions. It wasn't clear if they were offended by Giovanni's words or not. Giovanni said with a relaxed expression, "The winner of this test can win this test in two different ways. 1. The winner defeats the other two team leaders under Rule 8. Or 2. The winner completes his mission task first." The three got a little confused when they heard mission's task. Nobody knew what that meant. Giovanni continued, "The test will take place on an island completely occupied by Team Rocket." He showed a small smile as he said, "This island has above-average Pokemon with better potential than most places. Team Rocket is making quite a bit of money from this island." Alex had a neutral expression but was confused on the inside. Why is he saying that to us? Why was he smiling when he said that? I can't think of anything right now, but there must be a reason. Giovanni looked at 3 again as he said, tomorrow, as soon as the sun comes up, the test will start. Any participant who is not on the island at this time is disqualified. Also, each of you will get your mission task on the island. After saying that, he took out 3 letters and put them on the front of his desk. The 3 letters pointed in the direction of the 3 participants. Take it. Alex, Marco, and Janine went closer to Giovanni and each took a letter from the table. Persian looked at the 3 with a lazy expression, but even with that lazy expression, he was a destructive monster in Alex's eyes. A champion-level Pokemon had a completely different presence than an elite-level Pokemon, and one experienced trainer can tell at a glance if a Pokemon is a champion-level Pokemon. Although a trainer still can't say exactly the level of this champion-level Pokemon. Giovanni gave the 3 of them a slight smile as he said, I wish you 3 the best of luck. All 3 understood that they should now leave the room. That was just Giovanni's friendly way of telling them to get out of his room. Alex, Marco, and Janine said goodbye to Giovanni with serious expressions as they left the room. Chapter 374, Alex, Marco, and Janine left Giovanni's room and were back in the same hallway as before. But now they knew the way back to the waiting room where their subordinates were waiting for them. All 3 of them started walking towards the waiting room without a word. Nobody said anything for a few seconds and only the footsteps of the 3 could be heard. Although Janine's steps were barely audible. Marco breaks this silence first. He looked at Alex with a slim smile as he said, I saw you in the Kanto Champion Tournament. Your fighting style is really impressive. You really deserve the nickname, Master of Tactics. Alex just looked at Marco wordlessly. He felt that these words were not meant in a genuinely friendly way. Marco continued even though Alex ignored him. It's a shame that you were shown so much strength in this tournament. This test will be slightly more difficult for you. But, that okay, you are favored after all. This bastard really wants to set me up as the biggest threat in this test. The game can also be played by 2. Alex looked at Marco as he said, didn't you just say that I'm an open book already? I shouldn't be the favorite. The real favorite is the person who won the last Team Rocket Rookie Tournament. Of course, Marco was the person who won the last Team Rocket Rookie Tournament. He defeats Janine and Maria, who had defeated him. One can say that Marco had already defeated all the other participants. In the case of Alex, one can even say that Marco defeated the person who defeated Alex. Marco started saying in a laughing tone, Alex, this is so silly. It's been more than a year and everyone's strength is a lot better now. He didn't wait for Alex to reply as he continued, besides, it's been several months since the Kanto Champion Tournament, so you're not really an open book. A lot can change in so many months. Marco then gave Alex a serious expression as he said, especially when you're as talented as you are. Alex knew that he truly was the favorite in this test, but he wants to prevent Marco from convincing Janine to strike him out first. He looked at Marco with a cold expression as he replied, you really want to play a stunt like that? It's true that I seem to be the favorite, but my strengths and weaknesses are very open compared to yours. And even if the tournament was several months ago, a lot was shown and you can still easily estimate my strength. Alex continued after a short pause, in comparison, you're like a shadow. I have no idea what Pokemon you have or what level they are or what moves they have on the master rank. I don't know anything. That's not entirely true because Alex knew what Pokemon Marco had, but it was very close to the real truth. Janine looked at the 2 with an indifferent expression. She acted like the whole thing had nothing to do with her. Marco showed a slightly annoyed expression. Alex won the discussion or at least forced a tie. One can see it as a win for Alex because Alex's team is truthfully the strongest of the participants but is now only considered comparable to Marco's team in terms of threat. Although Alex didn't smile, he wasn't unhappy with the exchange. Especially after seeing Marco's expression. Marco showed an annoyed expression but he was extremely happy. This bastard really believed it. He wanted to lose this discussion right from the start so that Alex believes that Marco didn't manage to ally himself with Janine. Marco understood Alex remarkably well and also knew what Alex's biggest weakness is. Alex was arrogant, like a lot of genius. Although Alex is very logical and often puts logic over his emotions and it's hard to really exploit this weakness, Marco found a way. Marco understood this indifferent arrogance very well because he has this quality himself. He was very similar to Alex or Giovanni in that regard. The three walk again in silence, after Alex's victory. Alex, who now has time, is doing his favorite thing, thinking. He was thinking about what just happened and he felt that Marco's actions from just now were a bit weird. Not from the result but that Marco's actions are not something that actually fits Marco's character. Alex also has a relatively good understanding of Marco's character, harder to hide than Pokemon info, and what just happened really didn't fit Marco's character at all. The more Alex thinks about it, the more he felt Marco's action was quite stupid. Why build up him as the greatest danger right now? Is it not smarter to do that when he and Janine are alone? It gives him no big advantage to give Alex a chance to respond. Marco's actions were completely illogical to Alex. Normally that wouldn't confuse him if someone did something stupid, but because he understands Marco relatively well, it doesn't make any sense to him why Marco would make such a big mistake. Maybe Marco only made this mistake because he got emotional, but why would Marco get emotional when he sees me? No, that makes no sense. Alex thought about this for almost a minute before he found an explainable reason. Or it's a trap. Ah, that would also explain why Marco gave up so quickly even though he had the stronger argument. Alex now understood that Marco's goal was to make him think that he and Janine weren't allies. If that's really Marco's goal, the chance that they both already are allies or have a plan against me is extremely high. Alex then started to think about whether his realization is also a part of this trap of Janine and Marco. But after a few seconds discarded that idea. Such a plan is way too weird. Alex didn't think Marco would come up with such a bizarre plan. Especially with no tangible benefit. What's the gain for the two if Alex thinks they're allies? There were a few small advantages, but there were also many disadvantages. Alex stopped thinking about this nonsense. He overthinks things far too often. Thinking a lot has many advantages but also has a few disadvantages, just like Alex's overthinking just now. This chapter shows well what I have said many times before. Alex isn't actually incredibly smart. He has an above-average IQ, but that's not his greatest strength. The greatest strength of Alex is that he thinks a lot. About anything imaginable. He also often reflects on what he can do better after he did an action. A real genius would probably find out immediately or not at all what Marco's plan was. Chapter 375. The three finally reached the waiting room where their subordinates were waiting for them. Nobody said anything and went his way without a word. Alex, Marco, or Janine weren't really talkative without a reason to be. Alex and his subordinates left the Sylph Company through one of the secret exits. The four came out of the secret exit and were in a forest. Saffron City is surrounded by forests in all four directions, making it relatively easy to construct a hidden entrance/exit into the city. Alex glanced at his three subordinates as he said, "Wait a minute." Then he opened the envelope he had received from Giovanni. This letter contained a map. It was a map from Kanto to an island. Alex thought for a moment and then showed the map to his three subordinates. He has to come to this island tomorrow before the sun rises anyway, or he will be disqualified from this test, so it makes sense for Alex to move in the direction of this island directly. Maria looked at the map and said with a serious expression, "That's pretty far away. I'm not sure if we'll get there without a ship. The distance from this island to Kanto is very long and it is not easy to get there." Alex looked at the other three with a thoughtful expression as he asked, "Do you have any Pokemon that can carry you that long?" Flying-type Pokemon almost always fly by using flying energy, so they can only fly as long as they have enough energy. But that's also why Pokemon can carry their trainers and fly at a very high speed, so it's not really a bad thing. Most flying-type Pokemon at the elite level can fly for a very long time. Although some flying-type Pokemon need to use up a lot of flying energy to carry their trainers. Elise showed a proud smile as she said, "My Fiero or my Gyarados shouldn't have a problem carrying a person for that long. I'm not 100% sure about the Crobat and Xatu. Although there probably shouldn't be a problem either. All 4 of Elise's Pokemon are flying-type Pokemon and she is very useful in such situations." Daniel wore an indifferent expression as he said, "My Butterfree shouldn't be able to carry me effectively for that long. Butterfree is too small and weighs too little to carry a human for a long time. Even at this high level, Daniel's Butterfree can't hold him that long. Although Butterfree is a flying-type Pokemon, it is not suitable for carrying humans for too long. Beedrill isn't a flying-type Pokemon, so it can't use the flying-type energy, as well as a flying-type Pokemon can." Maria looked at Alex and said with a calm expression, "Pidgeot shouldn't have a problem carrying me for that long." Alex smiled slightly. "Okay. Daniel will fly on Elise's Fiero and the rest with their own Pokemon. We'll leave immediately. He and his team have been preparing for this day for a long time. Everyone has enough food for months, a campsite, and other useful items. Alex even has an oxygen tank with the right items to be able to breathe in the water for a brief time." Alex pulled out a weird-looking jacket from his TRH device. This jacket was connected with lots of ropes and on the shoulder had 2 steel rings connected to these ropes. It looks a bit like a parachute vest without the parachute and just the vest. Alex had this vest specially made so that Crobat can carry him more easily. Crobat only needs to hold the 2 steel rings and he can easily carry Alex without fear of Alex slipping out of his grip. It was also a lot more comfortable for Alex. It was very uncomfortable for Alex to carry his own full weight on his shoulders. Alex was even certain that if his body weren't so much more robust in this world than it was in his old world, that his shoulders would take an injury from being carried by Crobat like this. He put on this vest and summoned his Crobat. Maria and Elise also started summoning their Pokemon. Crobat, Pidgeot, Fiero, and Gyarados popped up from their Pokeballs. Alex looked at the information of these other 3 Pokemon. Alex didn't know what potential Gyarados had before, but the other 2 Pokemon improved their potential from the last time Alex saw them. Fiero from Shallow Gold to Deep Gold and Pidgeot from Gold to Deep Gold. Although these 2 Pokemon now have a Deep Gold potential, Alex doesn't think they can reach SS rank. These 2 Pokemon were born with a Deep Silver potential and are comparable to Alex's 3 starter Pokemon. Alex didn't think Maria or Elise would have enough money to get those Pokemon up the SS rank. All 4 Pokemon started carrying a person and they started following Crobat. Alex said with a serious expression, "Follow me and Crobat," when Crobat started to fly in the air. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in part 15. Peace.